Okay, I believe that we are now streaming live. Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, July 14th, 2020, and I would like to call to order the Community Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting, and the time is 9:07 a.m. I would like to just give just some protocol to how this meeting is going to work. If everybody that is on the call, if you could please try to make sure that you are on video conference, because otherwise I'm not able to see you to call upon you. And if you could please all have your phones or your computers on mute until you're called upon, and then you may unmute yourself. Also, let me see. Okay, I'm gonna, just so you know too, there's two screens of people, so I'm gonna have to toggle back and forth. So for some reason, if I don't see you, if you are not able to be on video chat, you would then have to potentially interrupt, and I would have to then call upon you, and everything will be done through the chair. So make sure you are called upon first. And the first item on the agenda is the chairperson's roll call, and I will go ahead and list everyone that is on this meeting. My name is Basha Adamzak. I am the community chairwoman and 7th Ward Council. We also have with us Rick Deek, Councilwoman Samantha Turner, Pat Kerrigan, Councilwoman Lauren McNally, and committee member Nikki Posterly, Chief Robin Lease, Mark Samuel, Rufus Hudson, Beverly Hosey, Rebecca Keck, Mary Lou Reyes, Lola Simmons, Shauna Berry Scott, Jennifer Ozinger, Ian Beniston, Trina Benson, Jack Daughtry, Hunter Morrison, Tiffany Sokol, Councilman Mike Ray, Dawn Montero, Kyle Mizak, Lindsay Gosens, April Alexander, Kevin Scott, Councilman Julius Oliver, and Committee Vice Chair, Mayor Tito Brown, Ryan Forney, Bob Burke, Rich Harvey, Sharon Woodbury, Kevin Tarpley, and Jeff Magada. I will quickly let you know what we're going to be doing today is we will allow each speaker to have 10 minutes, so that way we can get through this somewhat fast, because there are a lot of speakers on here, and we're not going to go in a particular order other than the order that council originally received when we received the recommendations from the CDA committee. But I would first like to call upon Councilman Julius Oliver, so he could kind of briefly explain to everyone why we called for this meeting today. Julius?
Yes, can everybody hear me? Hello, good morning, everybody. The reason for this meeting today is basically due to the last CDBG meeting. Myself and my colleagues on the committee and some off the committee felt like we weren't given accurate information, information that could actually lead us to making the correct decisions in which organizations could be funded and not funded. The scoring system was quite confusing because the scores left some organizations, though the score was low, eligible for funding, and other organizations, though the score was high, they were ineligible for funding. Some things came back to be true information, while other things were false information, which led us to believe that we were being misled to make certain decisions on who gets funded and who doesn't get funded. And that would have been a decision made in error. So we took the time, my colleagues and I on the committee and off the committee, including Samantha Turner, to do some research into things, knowing some things to be true and some things to be false, which led us to further investigate, deciding to go ahead and bring on the actual organizations to interview you ourselves so that we could get accurate information directly in order to be able to make an accurate decision, which led us to today's meeting. So welcome, everybody. I look forward to a great dialogue.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Julius. So the next item on the agenda is old business. We're going to go over the 2020 CDBG and Home Annual Action Plan. And we are going to be starting with, on the top of the list, we have the Community Police Program. And I'm going to start a timer just so we could kind of stay on track. Do my colleagues or would anybody like to start? And I believe we have Chief Lee's on the line that would be able to answer questions. Would anybody like to start with community policing? Councilwoman Turner.
Thank you, Chief Lees. If you could go ahead and tell us about the programming and how the program works and what are some of the outcomes that we've had and some of the supporting things that have happened with the development of the community policing program.
Yes, Councilwoman, through the chair. The community policing program was started about 5.5 or 6 years ago. The whole idea behind it was to assign officers to each of the individual council wards to work directly with the council people on those neighborhood issues that tend to be, nuisances, but don't necessarily require a 911 type response. The community officers were extensively trained in being able to contact other departments within the city and outside the city in order to bring resolution to various problems, anything from housing issue to mental health, and again, everything in between. The community officers, as I said, work directly with the council people, and in a lot of cases to deal with some of those lingering issues that occur in the neighborhoods that the regular patrol officers didn't have the time to really engage or to continue follow-up with. The community officers are on a regular basis attending block watch meetings, other community type events, everything from cleanups to right now they're actually engaged with the Park and Rec at the summer day camps that are being sponsored on the north and south side. It's kind of a catch-all for anything that's out there that basically we need them to do as far as working within the neighborhoods and again, providing support and services to the wards. Unfortunately, right now, with our staffing levels, I've had to pull 3 of the community positions back to the patrol division, and we currently have the 4 officers that this program funds distributed to the 4 sides of town in general. And that's where the program stands right now.
Samantha, follow up.
It's through the chair. So this is funding wages, not so you don't have any measurable outcomes. We're not doing measuring. We're really just funding the wages of these 4 officers right now. That
would be correct. You basically the program pays for the positions within the community policing unit.
Samantha.
And through the chair. So is there a program or outline? I understand they've been through training and given the resources to contact the interdepartment and external business or organizations to help support their efforts. But is there a program outlined for them to follow that the community can see, or is there no program? We're just really funding the person to be available.
Chief?
Well, I guess I could answer that in 2 ways, really. Yes, you're funding the person to be out there. Do we collect data? Yes, we do. On a monthly basis, I get a report from community police on, again, their various activities. While they're not oriented toward primarily enforcement actions, we track any of the arrest tickets they serve, number of block watch meetings they attend, the other again, efforts that they make out there on a day-to-day basis with community groups. So we do track, and I guess in a way of speaking, we have outcomes in that manner. So they're just not out there, I guess, freewheeling as you might suggest. They are on a day-to-day basis reporting into the office, responding to the messages or phone calls they might have had over the last 24 hours, and then meeting with the sergeant and addressing those issues.
Samantha?
And through the chair, my final question, Chief, if you could share that information, that data with each of the council people that you have, and what outcomes or changes that you've made to the program, that would be very helpful to myself, and I'm sure to my colleagues, and how we make a decision on funding this program. If that's possible, if you could send that over to us via email, it'd be very, very appreciative.
Through the chair, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. It's basically a spreadsheet that's provided to me, as I said, on a monthly basis.
Did you have another follow-up, Samantha, or are we okay? You're good. I'm sorry. Good. Do I have any other questions from my colleagues regarding the community policing program? No. Okay, perfect. So we will go ahead and move on to the City of Youngstown Litter Control Program. Would any of my colleagues like to start with that? Does anybody have any questions, or would we like to allow Bob to speak briefly? Bob, if you can kind of give a brief summary, what the funding goes to and how it's utilized for the litter control.
The funding, through the chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, sorry. The funding typically goes through all the payroll, I believe, for myself and Jamil. I think Kyle can, also talk about that too. But that's all the funding's gone through. I talked to a couple of the council members. They'd like to see more funding through programming in the future. But at this point, we have not budgeted for a lot of programming to be able to utilize it that way. Maybe in the next year, we can budget some more programming, but right now, currently, it only goes towards salary.
Bob, question. So where do you receive funding from for your programs?
So we get funding from the Green Team also for that, and we also get, we did receive a grant that was written before I got here to do recycling of tires and also electronics drive. But in the Green Team meeting yesterday, they still have not said when we can do a tire drive or electronic drive due to the COVID-19. Too many people would be in too close proximity, and we're not able to get enough laborers to assist with that. But so that money is still good until June of 2021. So we're hoping to do one maybe late fall if numbers get better, or early spring next year.
And I know that, and you've asked council as well to help with discretionary funding to aid with some of these programs, which I think litter control is extremely important in the city. I know it's not just myself, but my colleagues receive a lot of calls and grievances, regarding illegal dumping, things like that. Kyle, if you could tell me, if we were to switch Bob's, salary and wages to be covered within, our regular general budget, under what department would we have to fit Bob into? So that way we can use the funding allocated from the CBDG funding for actual programming and have his wages come out of, our regular city general fund.
Well, right now, the 2020 budget requires that all this funding in this CDB budget be put into the categories that we have, in essence, set our priorities on per the budget that you passed already. Anything going forward in calendar 2021 would require us to come up with new revenue sources to cover any of these issues that you decide to transfer out of the CDB budget. So if there's not enough in the budget to accommodate that, these things would be underfunded and potentially would cease going forward if there's funding not in place. So for the last 15 years, I've been relying on those CDBG monies for those 4 dedicated programs. So if there's any change by council to fund it in a different manner, we're going to have to cut in other areas in the general fund budget to accommodate that. So that's kind of our dilemma, but if you would like to see that moved off, that would most likely fall into the health department, and then we would need to increase the transfer from the general fund next year in 2021 to accommodate those monies that would no longer be earmarked from CDBG funds.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. I have Julius, then Lauren, and then Samantha. Julius?
Thank you, through the chair. So question, Kyle. So it appears that, and this is just for clarification, it appears that the city wouldn't really be able to operate the way it does now without the help of CDBG funds. I mean, not just organizations, but the city itself uses CDBG funds to subsidize things that aren't available out of our general fund.
To the chair, that is the case. I mean, when you think about those 4 items, when you add them up, there's roughly $1.2 million that is broken up between the summer paving program, the community policing, the litter control, and then the annual fire truck replacement program, where we make the payment to that lease, so that every time a fire truck comes off of a lease, we go out and acquire a new one and utilize those earmarked funds to make those payments.
And that would apply also to street paving?
Yes, because the majority of the street paving budget is coming from CDA.
Thank you.
Lauren?
Thanks. 2 things. Has the litter control program ever sought other grants from other sources?
Through the chair, the litter control program initially started where the county was fully funding it. And over the years, that funding has been cut as a result of just difficulties at the county level. We also have expanded on that program, and the city itself is paying out of the general fund and the business development fund for the 2 trucks that are now operating, one downtown and then one across all 7 wards. We are budgeting for that expense where we contract with CCA out of the general government funds. The money's being earmarked from CDBG for Bob Burke and his assistant are in essence making up the difference that we are no longer getting from the county. And if the county continues to cut its green funding, we would either need to shrink those operations in litter control or come back to CDBG and ask for additional funding.
Through the chair, this is Bob.
Yes, Bob, go ahead.
I'm sorry, because I don't have the video. I just want to let you know at the last board meeting, the Green Team, the months of April and May were down in funding. They're trying to find ways to cut some costs. So next year in 2021 might be a little tighter also. I just want to let you guys know that.
Okay, did you have another follow-up? Because I think we're running short on time. And then Samantha had a question, then I scrolled to the next page and I saw Mike had his hand up as well. Samantha?
I'm just gonna hold my question and statement to the end.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to also point out that I believe that the bulk of the funding from the county is green funding, which is recycling, and we kind of subsidize the litter collection portion of that. The primary focus of their programming is recycling based, and we know the dumping problem we have in the city. So I think it's very important that we continue to provide funding to make sure that we can, respond to those dumping issues that we have. That's just my observation.
Definitely, I agree. And I'm sorry, Lauren, because I believe I cut you off. Did you have another question or comment?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Do any of my colleagues have any more questions? We still have a couple minutes left with the parks, or are you guys ready to move on? Okay, we will move on to Dare to Dream, and I believe we have Shauna Berry Scott on the line with us representing Dare to Dream. Do my colleagues have any questions for Dare to Dream?
No, I would just like to hear the presentation.
Okay, Shauna, if you want to, briefly tell us about, your request and what your plans are. And if you could unmute yourself, please. You're still muted.
Did I get it?
Yep, there we go.
Okay.
Now we can hear you. Can anybody hear her? Because I can't hear her.
She was froze, but I think it's back now. Shauna, if you want to speak.
Can you guys hear me?
Now we can, yes, go ahead.
Okay, all right. I do you guys know that we have a youth program designed. It's changed a little bit in focus because of this COVID-19 season that we're in. We were trying to complement the change our
Shauna,
focus. Pardon me? Can you not hear me?
no, we keep losing you. It keeps breaking up.
What should I do?
Go ahead, just I guess continue, and if not, maybe you'll have to, try to log back in, and then we'll come back to you, but go ahead and try again.
Go get somebody to help me if you guys wanted to put me a little later or something.
Yeah.
I could go and try to get somebody to help log. I'm not real tech savvy.
I think maybe so, yeah, because it keeps bringing up. Yeah, if you could do that, and then we'll go ahead and move on for now. We'll come back to you. Is that okay?
All right.
Okay. We will move on to Flying High. Do we have, I believe that's Jeff Magada is representing Flying High. Jeff, if you would like to unmute yourself, and do any of my colleagues have direct questions right now, or would we like to give Jeff an opportunity to speak?
Yeah, I got one question.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman Oliver.
Is Flying High leasing or does it own its space?
Jeff, you have to unmute yourself, please. Jeff? Oh, okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Councilman, we are currently leasing our space. We are actually in negotiations to be a part owner in the space we are leasing.
Thank you.
Any other questions from my colleagues for Flying High?
I have a question, but if he can give us his overview, and then I'll go with my question.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're excited about our project. We are looking to create an economic development hub to prepare a ready workforce for the residents of the city of Youngstown. And right now we continue to have an issue, not only in the city, but region-wise, that there's not enough skilled drug-free workers to meet the demand out there. So what we want to do is create purposeful employment pathways where we are preparing and qualifying individuals, meaning that we are helping them to do 5 things, which we call the Big 5. Help them get a skills credential, pass a drug screen, valid driver's license, reliable transportation, and also then the professionalism skills to be able not only to obtain, but to maintain employment. And so our project is focused on helping all participants achieve those. And to do that, it takes a robust array of support services, particularly when individuals come and they have made criminal backgrounds, felonies, past addictions. And we have an expertise in being able to address the issues, those barriers, and see people walk through a process to become marketable for employment. And in addition, we also have a employer consortium called the Mahoning Valley Partnership for Employment that right now we have 40 employers that have agreed to interview and potentially hire the participants in the manufacturing and healthcare industries. And we're excited about that, as we have job developers that will work with those employers. And that is crucial to understand the needs of the employer, what they're looking for, what the demand is, and then have a pool of qualified workers ready to go right into those positions.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions? Councilman McNally?
Yeah, not for Jeff. Am I allowed to ask questions at this time to our team?
Yes, that's fine. If it's,
Okay.
yeah, if it's pertaining to his, yeah, that's, yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. So I'm just looking at his scoring sheet, just trying to keep this objective based on that scoring sheet. Is this because he's dealing with more economic development type of stuff than housing type of stuff? Does that not totally align? I know last couple of times we met, you guys were really focused on housing objectives. We don't have a lot of applications, if really any, that you were funding under economic development type of applications. So there's just his scores seem to be on the low end. Can you maybe talk a little bit about your evaluation process for him and how it looks like it maybe doesn't fit your 5-year consolidated plan? Beverly, I guess this would be Beverly.
Go ahead, Beverly.
I'm going to defer that to Rufus, who scored the application. But first, I would like to say that, as I have stated in several other meetings, that the score, the final raw score, is not based on just one area of evaluation. There are many different, this is one of the tools. The final score is just one of the tools. And I recall that I did bring that up at our last meeting, that once we score these applications, it still does not throw one out against the other, and that there is no perfect subrecipient. That is even a statement that is made throughout all the HUD manuals that I've read over the years, that there is no perfect subrecipient. So we are just evaluating to the best of our ability and to come up with a way that we can choose, because we can't choose everyone. So now I will defer that to Rufus Hudson so that he can state any details that he might have regarding the actual score.
Thank you, Beverly. Rufus?
Yes, through the chair. Once again, the scoring process is just one of the assessment tools that we use. I don't feel very comfortable with getting into the details of the scoring criteria, other than to say that they are relative based upon the criteria which we have to assess them. And so I'm not very comfortable with discussing the details of the scoring system on this venue.
I actually was going to ask what other tools are used when we do score. I kind of think that's imperative for us as council to know, and really for the general public to know, so they know what constitutes in a strong, application and what does not. So there has to be some type of.
Through the chair, I can give you some additional information on that aspect of it. So what we do with our prospective subrecipients, we are actually looking at overall organizational capacity. Has the organization ever undertaken a proposed activity? Could be one of the questions. In fact, that's one of the questions on our application. Does the organization have experience with community development block grant funds or even other federal programs? And does the staff have the capacity or the understanding to manage a federal program? And some of the federal programs functions such as reporting and internal controls. We have to look at those types of factors.
Beverly, and I'm sorry to interject because we're running out of time for this specific organization. So then I want to ask if there's any questions directly related to them. But the things that you're mentioning right now, are those factors that are used towards the actual scoring, the numeric score that we come up with?
Yes, and timeliness. So I sent out a score sheet to everyone to on the council and on the CPED committee to list some of the points. You know, is the project shovel ready? Has the organization a track record of being timely? So there's different factors. And again, I just want to take your focus off of the total score simply because when in the end, you are making a choice. And there, if we weren't going to make some other kind of choice, then this would be a futile exercise here, speaking with these successful applicants.
And I thank you, but I think what Lauren was asking, so besides all of those things that are being used to come up with the score, the numeric score, it has been reiterated several times that there's other tools used besides the actual numeric scoring. What are those other things that are taken into account?
Through the chair, well, the application itself, we actually have a funding matrix that we would say a risk assessment. We are cautioned to do a risk assessment. In fact, that is one of the tools that HUD asks us to use. So the risk assessment is in itself channeled into that score, and our consolidated plan, where the organization is located, what type of service they're going to provide, what is the potential impact, how many persons will they be able to service. And there might even be something as simple as what someone else might not look at. Has the organization already started to use funding or cost against this type of their project before we've done an environmental review? So there's a lot of internal factors that we are aware of, that we're not just reading the application, we're analyzing at the same time we're reading it. So we're looking at the application as the first step for successful monitoring. And I want to just say this too, a thoughtful pre-award assessment of potential subrecipients can reduce the risk of major problems later on and increase the chances of success. So a lot of our assessment is not to eliminate an organization, but to improve their chances for success. So let's say we see one that, you know, and this is not an opinion, this is an observation, that has potential for next year and maybe not this year. So we take a year and we work with them to improve their chances for success in helping the community, rather than taking them on now and having them fail because they do not have all the proper HUD systems or the financial systems or sufficient cash flow to start a project and end it in a timely manner.
Thank you. And then I think too, and I guess we'll talk about more general questions after we get through all the speakers, because I would like to wrap up and with flying high and give everybody else the opportunity as well. But Lauren, did you have a follow-up, or was your question answered? And then I saw Julius's hand, and then Samantha. Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, mine are more, they're not directly related to this. I guess they're more related to the things Beverly was just listing off are exactly what's on the scoring sheet. So You know, I guess I'm just still a little bit confused as to how we're remaining objective and what these other things that, you know, she's mentioned a few times actually are, because the things she rattled off, I can see right here on her scoring sheet that she's scoring, which I like because it keeps it objective, right? We have to maintain objectivity, otherwise, you know, we're being biased. I just want to make sure that's happening.
Thank you.
And through the
Julius,
chair, all I can say is that we are objective. I am personally objective, and we're going to continue to beat a dead horse. And I think maybe if you would ask maybe some of the sub-recipients that have worked with the Community Development Block Grant Program, you know, over the years, or some of the agencies that have applied, and, you know, we could listen to them too to get some type of answer that may satisfy you. Even if it's something negative toward myself, I would be more than happy to hear that.
Yeah, and I think we
have
just have
them
to
right
look at
here.
the process overall in general and just kind of modify things to make it better. But go ahead, Julius, because we have to continue moving on.
Yeah, quickly through the chair, two things. I think we gotta, you know, I think we gotta beat this dead horse until we bring it back to life, because the city depends on it. If you look at the scoring and the criteria of it, it seems like it should be objective, but it clearly isn't. I think that's something that everybody has to understand. Whatever things that Rufus is not comfortable with discussing, I think maybe the very things that ourselves need to make decisions and organizations need to improve their application and how they're spending their money each year. I don't know, because he's uncomfortable discussing it. But second thing is, when outside the scoring, there were other criteria that you guys used to either qualify or disqualify somebody for funding. One of them in our last meeting was the organization leasing space. One organization was leasing space, and that was the primary reason listed to why they shouldn't receive funding. Whereas we just listened to Flying High, they are listing space, but they were recommended. So this is what I mean when I say beat this dead horse. Outside the scoring, there's still other criteria, there's still other decisions being made, and it's not consistent to be able to make, for us to be able to make a clear decision if okay, you disqualify this person because they're leasing space, even though they're buying it, but you qualify this person, and they're still leasing space. It's very confusing, and it would seem that the process is not thoughtful and not objective. So eventually I would just want somebody to explain to me exactly how you make decisions on who gets funded and who doesn't, because it's not the scoring and it's not certain criteria. And if it's just me that sees it that way, as soon as I'm done, Beverly,
yes.
Chair, so if it's just me that sees it that way, or it's just me that's willing to say it like this, then I digress. But I don't think so. And I think that's the reason why a lot of our citizens and organizations have a trust problem with the city, is because things aren't clear, and people need clear understandings of things, including the committee that got to make these decisions. So that's what I'm looking for. How does one organization qualify leasing space, even though most of the organizations lease space, and another one doesn't qualify? Where's the scoring in that? Like, how does that work overall?
Through the chair, and thank you, Councilman Oliver. The only thing that I can say with that is, in the end, council is going to make a decision. We have to choose. And I'm only going to say this again because I think it's important to say it in this meeting, and I've said it before, that I cannot make you believe that this is an objective process. We've done everything according to our requirements with HUD, and they have approved our system of scoring and of selection and so forth. So that is all I can do. And when we talk about beating a dead horse, we could use another terminology if that is okay, but there's just nothing more that I can say but that we have put a process in place that has been approved and a monitoring system that is in place that has been approved, and that we are committed to our public, not only to our subrecipients, but to our public at large, to put forth a CDBG program that was designed to help low to moderate income persons. And that is exactly what our dedicated, very much dedicated goal is achieving. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Beverly. Samantha, you had a comment, and then we're going to move on to the next.
Chair.
Oh, and I would like to
Chair.
also state, I believe Anita Davis, Councilman Davis, is trying to get onto the meeting. Rick, will you allow her in the meeting, please?
I'm in. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Okay.
I'm in. Okay.
All right, great.
Through the chair,
Yes, Julius and Samantha, and then we have to move on.
I didn't get my question answered. How does this organization, which are currently on Flying High, who is leasing space, qualify? But another organization that was said to be leasing space, but there isn't, that was the disqualifying factor with them.
Rufus, because I believe that that you answered that at the last meeting. So can you please answer?
Leasing
Councilman?
space has never been the single disqualifier for any organization. It's a factor, but not the only factor. I never
Julius?
said that was the single decisive factor. I said it was a factor.
Well, then I guess I'll ask a question then. I'm sorry, Julius. Why, I guess in this situation, when is it considered a hindrance for an application, and when is it considered a benefit? Like, what makes leasing a space be, even if it's not the only determining factor, but at what point is it a hindrance to some and not to others?
If leasehold improvements or improvements to a facility are going to be made that the person does not own, there's no way of recapturing, those expenditures. Why would you put a capital improvements into a space that you are only leasing? And so, looking at improvements to a space that you don't own would not be something that would be encouraged. So that is one of the things that we're looking at.
Julius, did you have a direct follow-up, and then Samantha?
I would need a lot more clarification on that, because most people that lease space, even especially nonprofits, are improving the space that they're leasing, because the landlords or the people that they're purchasing the property off most likely isn't going to do those improvements. And that's been the case for nonprofits for decades. So that explanation does not suffice.
Through the chair.
Yeah, Beverly, if we can just briefly in that.
Yes,
So
I just want to briefly address, and sometimes when we're talking about fund money, CDBG funding may not be able to be used for a certain type of activity or to be used within a budget, but some other funding from another source would be more practical or within regulations. If you wanted to do improvements, then you might have to just tap into one of your other funding sources. So, if that's the basis of that question, that sometimes CDBG funds just aren't the right funding to use for a particular cost.
thank you.
Last thing
Samantha,
on the record.
Oh, go ahead.
We have used CDBG funds in the past to repair roofs. I just want to put that on the record, just in case it comes
Through the chair, roofs are an eligible activity, an eligible cost in CDBG.
Okay, we're going to move on. Samantha has a question or a comment, then we have to move on. Samantha, Councilman Turner.
Just a quick question, and this could just be for Rufus or Beverly. I have two questions. First is, at this current time, the applicants don't have their scores until awards are presented. or announced. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Rufus, would you like to take that?
Yeah, we do the scoring once again as an assessment of the applications way before the award process.
I'm sorry, no. So, but the applicants right now don't have their scores or know their scores.
Well, they don't. Once again, that's an internal process that we do when we do scoring and risk assessment. That's why I said I'm uncomfortable with discussing that, because we're talking about an internal process, something that's never intended to be something that's shared publicly. I'm not being I wasn't being evasive. I'm just saying internal controls, I see no reason why that will become part of the public discussion.
Thank you.
Rufus, and I'm sorry to interject, Samantha. Rufus, are the applicants ever made aware of what they scored or no?
No, there's no reason for them to know that.
I strongly disagree. I mean, I think they should know where their application is strong or where their application is weak, so they know how to apply or modify what they need to do in order to be eligible for the funding, or how can they ever, improve. I mean, I think I'm just going to say I strongly 100% disagree. Samantha.
Through the chair.
Council, 1 second,
okay.
Beverly. Samantha
Yes.
wasn't, because I interrupted. Go ahead, Samantha.
That I just wanted that point of clarity before we continued in that line of questioning, Rufus. But my question actually is for Flying High. Your ask is very robust, and if you could, Jeff, just indulge us and give us a quick synopsis of the partners you're planning to work with in order to achieve this program that you've proposed, and and I know you listed the staff in the application, but it just seems like there's a lot here for one organization to handle. So if you could tell us a little bit about the partnerships that you plan to enlist to make this program happen.
Yes, absolutely, Councilwoman. We're excited because we are really developing partnerships with other organizations that have done workforce development and pulling those resources really under one roof and synergizing it for the residents, the city. So we're working with MyCap, is one of the community partners that has worked in that space for some time, and going to be pulling resources in from them and synchronizing some of their programs into the programming that we have. Also, we're utilizing UMADOT to do some youth outreach, and that will be focused on that population 16 to 21. And of course, we've had a longtime community partner in Home for Good that has worked with us with the reentry population. But what we're looking is that space to be almost of a one-stop shop, if you will, where you have leveraged resources from multiple community agencies that can have space there and then also connect to where their home sites are. So we think this has been long overdue, site in the downtown area, and we're excited about the potential that it holds and the partnerships that have been, and I got to tell you, overwhelmingly supportive of doing such a thing.
Samantha, follow up.
Yes. So Jeff, what you're saying is that your goal is to build kind of an incubator of sorts where these other organizations will be in one area in addition to their home base, so that we can provide services under one roof. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, somewhat. In that, think about somebody walking in the door there, and they have maybe issues, they have court fines to pay, other things to get in line. But there's resources they can connect to under that roof, okay? They can already make an initial point of contact with those agencies that already have the resources to provide them. So whether they can do it right there, in the space that we're providing, or if they need to be referred to that wherever that, organization is to receive further services, that's the model. Again, think of a one-stop shop type environment.
Through the chair.
Mayor.
If I could interrupt, could I add just a piece to this? Just to give a sense of what we're looking for, and after talking with Jeff and other community members and employers, this is the one-stop shop where you hear that oftentimes people say, well, there's no jobs. And if you talk to the employers, they say we don't have a great workforce. So this is bringing those two pieces together. Individuals can go to this one-stop shop, find out who's hiring, and see where they line up on the spectrum of what skills they may have and or what skills they may need. Working with the community college as well to help us, the pieces that they're missing, they can get those pieces so that we can have that one-stop shop. Individuals can figure out where they fit into the workforce development. And also, when employers are coming in looking, we can show them that we have people ready to go with those skills and assessments that they need. So this is one of the pieces that I think we've been missing, and we need to make sure that we move this piece forward so that we have workforce development for everyone, that the employee as well as the employer.
Thank you, Mayor. Samantha?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, through the chair. Jeff, so if you don't receive this funding, because like I said, it's in a robust ask, how do you plan to move this project forward?
So we will continue to, utilize whatever resources that are available in the community to continue. And really, the main, biggest line item is the staff that it takes to provide the support services. That really is the silver bullet, in regard to helping people to become marketable, because it takes that case management piece, it takes peer support, it takes job developers, it takes those relationship building positions that, that create the pathways for individuals to, access those opportunities. So we will continue to just seek outside other funding, to put the pieces in place.
Do you have a direct follow-up, Samantha? And then Councilman Oliver had his hand up.
Yes. So if the funding doesn't come through, you're going to continue to work with your partners in the community to develop the resources and build the programming, correct?
Yeah, we'll do our best. Absolutely. We'll try to leverage everything we can. But it will be tough, to be honest with you, without the investment.
Great. I'm sorry, through the chair. So thank you for that, and thank you to continue to be a good community partner. But my question actually is for everybody, and I hope you can all just add a little piece in. How do you plan to achieve these goals right now in the age of COVID? I know when you put your applications in, it was in May, so we kind of had an idea of what our world is going to look like. So if you could add that in there, what are you going to do to make sure that you can achieve these goals in this year, where everything is kind of changing? Just a small blurb about that. That would be helpful as well in our consideration.
And I have a quick question. I don't know if this would go to Nikki or who this would go to. It seems that some of the services that are being offered kind of fall in line with what we contract Jonathan Bentley to do. I mean, is that an accurate assessment? And would this organization then be working hand in hand with the Tax Incentive Review Council?
Through the chair, this is Nikki. The services that Flying High offer are, if you look at it as a step above your entry level, your JFS, where they will go to get those entry level jobs. This is a skill building organization. Jeff Magada and his organization have been around for a long time. They've just not sought out CDBG funds. So in terms of what Jonathan Bentley would do with tax incentive, we definitely have an economic development part in that, with preparing the workforce for the businesses that come here. We also want to make sure that when we're seeking out, we're partnering with Jeff to say, hey, here's this business that wants to set up here, and here's the skills that they need. So there's definitely an economic development component to it, which makes his application a little more difficult because he fits in different categories. That's why the ask is so large, because of the different areas that this organization and the opportunities are there touched. So you're looking at the community impact as well as economic development. So it's difficult to figure out what activity per se for HUD's guidelines he specifically fits in. So that's why his ask is so large.
Thank you, Nikki.
So
Julius.
Oh,
go ahead.
Development.
Okay, Julius, and then we're going to have to move on to our next guest. Go ahead, Julius.
So as a member of the Tax Incentive Review Council, number one, I haven't heard of this program. Number two, even though I've been very strong on trying to employ the people of Youngstown with these tax abatements that we give companies. The second thing is, if we were to give this amount of CDBG funds to Flying High, which seems like a good program, would it be better to fully fund and staff up Jonathan's department with the workforce database that he's building, which seems like kind of the same thing?
Through the chair. May I
Okay, go
respond?
ahead.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Nikki.
The difference in what Flying High does and what Jonathan does, Jonathan is looking at the organization, making sure, that they're hiring the city residents, that making sure that the minority component is included in that. What Flying High is doing is they have actual schools there. They have welding, they do AOD counseling, they have counselors on site, they are partnered up with childcare facilities. So they have a whole array of services that we can't provide here through the services that we have with Jonathan Bentley. They have an on-site school that trains and teaches as you, they work with individuals who don't have transportation. So it's much larger than data collection and making sure business is held accountable to the tax incentive.
Yeah, just a direct follow-up. I was actually directing that question to the mayor. And if that's the case, are the workforce database that Jonathan is developing or has been developing for some years now in communication with Flying High, or is that working together right now, or are they totally separate?
Mayor?
Well, I'm not sure, just through the chair, I'm not really sure if you're referring if Jonathan and Jeff have gotten together. I don't know that. Jonathan is collecting the data and figuring out who's hiring where. Jeff's actually removing those barriers for those individuals so that they can not just get a job, they can actually have a career. So there would be some communications with this, between Jeff as well as with Jonathan, but I think you're talking two separate entities. There's one that's collecting and making sure that individuals say what they're going to do, they're doing. And the other one is saying, well, you can hire these individuals because we're going to help them get the skills and remove those barriers that are in front of them. So Jeff is dealing with the social side of it. And I think Jonathan's dealing with the enforcement and or compliance side of it.
Well, just a direct follow-up. It's called the workforce database. So Jonathan's workforce database is to build a database of employable people, as well as be able to offer those people to the organizations that are hiring, both that have tax abatements and don't have tax abatements. And I'm sorry, Basha, if I'm getting way off of agenda. I'm just trying to make sure that these two entities are working together, because it seemed like they should be if they're not.
Can Sharon, if you could maybe touch on that, please.
Absolutely. Councilman Oliver brought up a very good point. I actually had a discussion with Jeff Magada earlier this year to get a better understanding of the programs that he was offering. And it's very helpful that he's got companies lined up. So the goal is for us to work with the companies that are receiving tax abatements and seeing if they could become a part of the employer support group that Jeff has cultivated, and adding our companies to participate in that program.
Are you good with that, Julius? Because we have to move on, because each presenter is supposed to have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. And I also just wanted to quickly state that regarding the whole entire process, it's important to understand that everything that we do in the city is public, and everything is, available for public record. So any process that we're doing, whether it's allocating funding, all of that needs to be made public to our constituency. So I did want to go ahead and state that on record. We are going to move on to Heart Reach Neighborhood Ministries, and I believe representing them is April Alexander. Is she?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. go ahead and you could just give us a brief overview of what you do, and then we'll go ahead and take questions from my colleagues.
Sure. So Heartreach Neighborhood Ministries operates 3 centers, 2 in the city of Youngstown, 1 in Camel. We work with youth. Overall, last year we served about 370 youth. Of those youth, we target students to be in our Ready for Work program, which is a program that does 2 different things. We work with students with outreach and evangelism on the one hand, but then we are also working with students for career and college readiness. So those students that we work with shadow and mentor. We mentor them. They work in our programs. We help them to develop resume writing and those 21st century skills so that they are then equipped to be able to go on and get employment, to seek some kind of post-secondary education. Most of our students are 7th through 12th graders. And so during the 10-week sessions that we have with them, they are actually writing resumes, doing mock interviews, learning how to show up on time, interact with other clients, with family readiness. Family assistance. They're working with other youth. They're tutoring. They're doing community service. So we partner with other organizations within the city. For example, we partner with Metro Church, and they then work with the South Avenue corridor, doing landscaping and different things. They have sessions with us where we have community agencies, people coming on and talking about careers. So in this time of COVID, we are actually now we are not doing our regular summer camp, but we are working with our teens right now, doing Zoom meetings. We bring our kids on site, but since we can't take them to different agencies to job shadow, we are bringing in those people via Zoom to do activities, to talk about careers, and to really pour into the lives of our kids. So in a nutshell, that's what we do.
Thank you so much, April. Any questions from my colleagues? Councilman Turner?
Thank you so much for providing that information. I just have a quick question. Have you partnered with any of the other community organizations that are providing this kind of young adult, not young adult, but teen and preteen, such as Inspiring Minds? You guys are right in the same vein. Are you guys partnering in any way to make a larger impact overall, or any other organizations that I may not have listed?
So we don't partner with Inspiring Minds. I certainly know who they are. Trying to think. We partner with agencies. So we are not partnering with other youth serving agencies, to answer that question, but we are partnering with other community agencies to help impact our kids. We do partner with the Envision Center. We are part of the Envision Center. So anything that they are doing, we join in. So if they have youth that are doing things, we're partnering with them. But that's really about it.
Samantha, did you have a direct follow-up? Any other questions? Okay, great. Oh, go ahead, Anita.
Yes, to the chair. Yes, you mentioned that it was in an evangelistic portion to the program.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that is it?
So, so when I say evangelistic, Because we are a Christian organization, and a part of what we do is we teach the gospel. It is a component of our after-school programs. It's a component of our various outreach activities. So when we do things like Christmas box giveaways to families, or we sponsor dinners, or if we do activities for kids, at the various YMHA sites where we partner. The gospel is a part of that. So our kids are learning biblical instruction. They're learning skits. They do songs and praise dances. So they do that as a part of whatever it is that we are doing in the city, whatever kind of outreach.
And
Did you have follow up? Go ahead.
yes, so far as LGBT individuals, are they welcomed in your organization?
So we don't turn, everybody is welcome in our organization.
Do they have a good, do you give them do you give them a hassle?
I'm sorry, do we give them a hassle?
Yes, is there a problem? Are they singled out? Do you talk about those issues? And if so, in what fashion?
So have we specifically talked about LGBT issues? No, we haven't. If we had students who came to us and mentioned that they were a part of that community, would we ask them to no longer be a part of us? Absolutely not. We are inclusive, and we love on all of our kids and all of our families.
All right, thank you.
Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. Is this your first time applying for CDBG funding?
Not for Ready for Work. So I've been with Heartreach Neighborhood Ministries for about 2.5 years. And so we have not applied during my time. We are two organizations, Heartreach and Neighborhood Ministries, that merged a couple of years ago. So no, not during my tenure.
So neighborhood,
meaning yes, it is our first time during my tenure.
Okay, but you said you've merged with Neighborhood Ministries?
That is correct.
Okay, so last year Neighborhood Ministries applied for funding, is that correct? Rufus, I'm trying to see. No, they didn't. Okay, that's all. I just wanted to ask about the legacy of the programming.
Okay.
I see that it wasn't applied for last year, so that was okay. That was my mistake.
Okay.
Councilman Oliver?
The funds that would potentially come from CDBG funds from Youngstown, are you able to separate that funding from Camel to Youngstown, or do you just put it in one pot and service everybody?
We service everyone. I don't know if we would be able to separate. Go ahead, Mark. Mark will answer. He's our CEO.
Hi, this is Mark Samuel with Heartreach. And yes, we can. We do we can split all of our data and our funding by Camel and Youngstown. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair.
Anita?
Yes, you said you can, but have you done so in the past? And do you also receive funding from Campbell?
It is a part of our process in how we do. We actually divide all of our data and also all of our funding amongst the 3 community centers that we have. So the answer is yes to that. And no, we do not receive funding at this time from Camel. No.
Anita, did you have follow-up? Go ahead.
Yes. Have you requested funding from Campbell? And
we have not requested funding from the city of Campbell, no.
This year you haven't? Do they not receive CDBG funds?
I am not aware if they do.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will go ahead and move on to Home for Good. And I believe we have Lola Simmons representing Home for Good.
Yes, I'm
Or
here.
Oh, okay, perfect. If you want to go ahead and give a brief background, and then we'll open up the floor for any questions from my colleagues.
Okay. So Home for Good goes back to 2013. And at that time, our work was minimal with our pre-release, well, post-release, I'm sorry, post-release individuals. So ours at this point has increased its work inside of our institutions, doing a large amount of our pre-release programming in addition to our post-release when they are released from our institutions. Now, our work involves those individuals who have been incarcerated for any reason or have any history that has prohibited their movement once they are getting into the work world, or housing individuals who have those needs that are barriers to them moving forward. So, and I'll talk about the COVID right now. For the COVID-19, what are we doing? Well, I had a meeting with ODRC, that's the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, on last week. And we're doing our Zoom meetings, our Microsoft team, to make sure that we are still connected and connecting with those individuals inside the institutions. Now, inside the institutions, movement is still limited. So if there's someone that we have a dire need to get housing for or prepare for their release, we receive the calls from the regional reentry of the state of Ohio so that we can move forward and house those individuals with some of our community partners here. One of the things that makes us, I'll have to say, stand out is that we've become the leg and the arm for ODRC in Mahoning and Trimble County. So if they have a need for something, we are working with them so that we can better prepare the individuals. Right now, I am actually representing on the State Regional Reentry Academy development team. So there are 8 of us in the state, and we're trying to prepare those individuals inside of our institutions so that they can better prepare the individuals that are. So what Home for Good does here is makes sure that when they come out, they come to visit us. And for all of those services that they need, those resources, we work diligently, Ms. Hosey, Elisa Hosey and I, to connect those individuals to those resources. We also sponsor, I'm the executive director of, the executive director of Home for Good, but also the chair of the Mahoning County Citizen Circle. Citizen Circle is comprised of those individuals who are community partners in this area: BMV, MyCap, Job and Family Services, Children, Child Support, Enforcement Agency, so on and so forth. In those Citizen Circle meetings that we host as Home for Good, those individuals that are coming out can meet one-on-one with those individuals that represent and sometimes resolve their issues right there when they are sitting in our circle meetings. So our mission and goal is to make sure that those individuals that are having those obstacles can move forward in their lives, regardless of what their history was. One of the major things that we do also is the CQE, Certificate of Qualification for Employment, to, in a sense, banish some of those barriers. It is actually taking away those barriers, those collateral sanctions that individuals have to deal with when they are looking for employment. We've collaborated with Flying High, the City of Youngstown, SERVE, and so on. And so we, for the most part of our request, it is for administrative costs. There's a small amount for supplies, telephone, things like that, but primarily a small amount for our administrative costs.
Thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Samantha?
And I'm sorry, this is going to be kind of a ongoing question. So you are the only reentry program that has applied, but you're not the only reentry program around. How are you partnering with other reentry programs here in the city to help leverage the resources that we have?
What I don't know is those reentry programs other than United Returning Citizens. I'm somewhat familiar with them. Now, for everything that we do with, whether it's with ODRC or locally, I do send out emails for invites to make sure that they're included in those activities that we are doing, to make sure that they're aware of whatever changes are going on.
Samantha?
And just a direct follow-up. So I'm going to just say that line of questioning is, we don't have, there's not a lot of resources in the community. And I just want to ask all of the applicants, is overlapping the services, if there is someone that, you know, does something slightly better that we are partnering with or sending people their way, is there anyone at your organization, and you all can feel free to answer as you go through, that is reaching out and help, making sure that we are not double spending or overlapping these services, you know, for our returning citizens and for the community at large?
Okay.
Go ahead, Lola.
Okay, I will say that one of the advantages that Home for Good has is the ability to go inside of our state institutions. There are restrictions. And so everyone that has a reentry program may or may not be eligible for that, but we have the state clearance to do that. And so that gives us no restrictions within the state and no restrictions for federal institutions.
Samantha?
Great. So that may, if you have the clearance to go in and maybe another reentry program, which could be United Returning Citizens or anyone, maybe they have the ability to do something outside, whether it's helping getting licenses. And I just don't want to see us duplicating resources and making the ask, although you're the only to apply this year, but if we get one next year, I know that I would like to see, and this would go to Beverly and Rufus and Nikki, that, you know, we are making sure that we're splitting up how the work is being done so that it's being done in the most effective manner. That's all I was asking, but I'm glad you guys have a good handle on it, but reaching out and building strong partnerships, I think will go a long way, especially with our limited resources.
Okay, perfect. Do my colleagues have any more questions, or we'll go ahead and move on?
Lola had a final statement.
Oh, go ahead, Lola. I'm sorry, because there's a lot of you guys on the screen. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say our record of relationship building and continuing to reinforce those relationships with the community partners who are effectively making those changes in the lives of those individuals with whom we work has been astounding. And we continue to develop new relationships and also to continue strengthening. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. We will go ahead and move on to Inspiring Minds. And do we have, I believe it says Stephanie Gilchrist is here to represent Inspiring Minds, or do we have someone else on the line? Is anybody here from Inspiring Minds? Okay. It does not appear that there is. We will then quickly go back to Dare to Dream. Shauna, are you? I believe Shauna is back on the line as well. Yes. Okay. Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can. If you want to, give us a brief, just summary, and then we'll go ahead and we'll leave it open for questions from my colleagues.
Okay. Dare to Dream is a youth program. Our primary mission before COVID hit was to provide an after-school program for the children. Now, since we're in the COVID-19 season, we will be transferring some of what our primary issues were over to the education piece. We'll be taking instruction from any of the Youngstown City School teachers on what we can do in terms of helping the kids get their assignments done for school while they have to do the distance learning. A lot of the children that we service are in the housing projects in the city, and a lot of them don't have access to Wi-Fi. They don't have access to devices. And Ms. Dawn Montero is going to be helping us provide some of the devices and that access through the Youngstown Metropolitan Housing Authority. And we'll be focusing a lot of our activities in Victory housing projects and in Briar Hill. And any of you that are familiar with Briar Hill, especially, it's sort of cut off from the whole world. So we're trying to really focus a lot of our activities there. We found an organization called PCs for People. So any additional devices that we need, they have very low priced hotspot Wi-Fi services for as low as $16 for the monthly data plan. So we'll be combining services with what YMHA is going to provide to try to help our children not just be left out and forgotten about while we're having to stay safe and do the social distancing piece until schools, till we're, you know, until the virus is under control enough that the kids can go back to school. But what we try to do is what our basic program outline is when school is in, is that the children are in school daily, and then they come to us for 3 to 4 hours every evening. This is something that's been tried and true in the past. These are the hours that most of the kids get in trouble, they get hurt, they get involvement with the criminal justice system. They get involved in violence and criminal activity. So we keep them under our care with adult supervision, with all types of positivity-based activities for them to participate in after school. So by the time they're in school all day and they're with us for 3 to 4 hours in the evening, we feed them a hot meal before they go home. They go home and go to sleep. They're not out in the street. They're not becoming victims or victimizers. And we've done it before in the past, and we know we can recreate it now with just some technology added to our old formula. Some of our primary goals that we'll be working towards is the education piece, and that's assisting Youngstown City Schools, anti-violence. Everybody knows that in Youngstown, violence is probably one of our leading problems, violence and poverty. And we'll be we'll be taking the kids to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. They have a program called SAFE, and it actually shows them like in the trauma units and, you know, what happens when someone's a victim of gun violence. I think a lot of the children just see the gun violence on TV and they think it's, or a video game, and they don't understand the seriousness of it. So we're trying to catch them at an early enough age that they won't get caught up in that lifestyle and end up in trouble or us having to go to another funeral. We'll be addressing a drug prevention portion of our programming. My son and I are both licensed drug counselors with the state of Ohio. And we both, our regular full-time job is we work for the Red Zone. So we have a whole team of QMHS workers. So they'll also be available if children need additional assistance, and that we'll try to keep them from ever going down that route in the first place. And the final thing that I would say is a primary goal of ours is we teach them some basic social skills. So many children now have raised themselves, or they've never been just taught basic home training. We'll be doing things like home economics, cooking classes, Miss Manners is one of the classes that we provide. So I think we're all kind of acutely aware of the fact that a lot of the children are very disrespectful now. They don't have that old fashioned basic home training. So those are some of the things that are a part of the programming that we provide. I just wanted to point out too that a lot of the programs that are in place suffer from a lack of participation and a lack of funding. We kind of pride ourselves on the participation piece. We have a very large family who all help and volunteer with the programming. My husband is one of 17 children. We have over 200 nieces and nephews. So until we are more fully funded, we have plenty of hands on deck to help with all of the classes and the fun activities, field trips, or whatever we're going to be doing. We have a way of getting, we have no qualms about going door to door. We go door to door and knock and get the children to participate. We're very hands-on, And the services that we provide are direct services. There's no referral or anything like that. We take care of whatever comes up that the children need. Yeah, I think that just about sums it up. We'll be making sure that we have the fun stuff involved for them too, even in the age of COVID. We'll be taking all of the regular measures, the temperature checks, hand sanitizers on hand, masks if the children want to participate. And although we had a different idea of what our fun activities were going to include, we'll still be able to do different things like tetherball, obstacle courses. We're going to have cornhole tournaments, hip hop aerobics, and line dancing with social distancing, of course, as a part of all of those measures. Even if we have to transport the children, until we get a bus, we'll only be transporting 2 children per vehicle so that we can try to comply as best as we can. We're all inclusive. So any of the children within the city of Youngstown that want to participate, even if we're at one of the housing projects or the other, we make sure that they're able to come and enjoy and feel a part of something. The kids now are just bouncing off the walls. They've been in the house for far too long. They are driving their parents crazy. So we just want to try to have some positive channels to get that energy channel to, for them to be able to still survive this while we're still going through this virus. And it'll soon be over and we'll be able to get back to regular programming. But until then, we have some special ideas about what we can do with them. I can't hear you, Basha.
I'm sorry, I said no, thank you, because we're running low on time. If I could, yeah, I'll call on my colleagues if they have questions. Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. So, Ms. Scott, if you could tell us, you've been at the beginning in 2017. Can you give us some kind of hard numbers of impact and the children that you've served and how that's impacted the individual communities that you target?
Well, I can't give you any kind of hard numbers from 2017 because we've never been funded. So up until now, the main thing that we've done is provided case management services and passed out food in the community. We're still waiting to actually get formal funding, and everything that we've done so far, we've done it out of our personal incomes in our family. We pool our resources together and provide those services. But in the past, we serviced over 1,000 children a year when we were working at the Hackstrom House. And things were bad then, but they're much worse now. So we know once this virus has passed, the needs will be great and we'll be able to scale up our services. We just listed 350 as a goal number for this first year because we wanted an opportunity to be able to show you guys what we're capable of doing and the different services that we'll be able to provide and the benchmarks that we'll be able to meet. We just wanted one chance to be able to show you what we can do.
Shauna, so if I just want for clarification, so you have not been awarded CBDG funding in the past?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Samantha, you had follow up.
Yes, and so I understand you guys are kind of making a grassroots effort. Again, have you partnered with any other community organizations that are providing similar services to children in that age group to help strengthen the program that you have?
We haven't partnered with anybody on the children's services per se, but we are providing basic services, and Miss April Alexander has been instrumental in that. They've provided their gym over there in the Kimmelbrook, what's it called now? Rockford Village, I'm sorry. But they've partnered with us and helped us with getting the word out and making their space available to us. And that's been very helpful. And we have no qualms at all about partnering with anybody. I come from an age here where we used to have about 12 different community organizations for youth, and all of them worked hand in glove together. And we had like a round robin of different agencies we could go to and we could receive services from and have a lot of fun activities to engage in. And I point this out to people all the time. When we had that strong system in place, we had no dead children. We never went to a funeral of a child, a schoolmate, or anything like that. And it's my heart's desire to recreate that old system that used to exist. My son wanted to say something to you.
How you doing? And also, I wanted to point out that we have.
And I'm sorry, except for the record, Lester Scott is on the call.
Lester Scott the second. I'm sorry.
The second. Go
I'm
ahead.
Shauna's son. In the past, we have actually partnered also with what's the church group name?
Neighborhood Ministries?
No, Now.
Now, yeah.
We partnered with the Now Action Church Group. We actually had an event, I believe it was in 2018, where our goal was to feed 1,500 families that were suffering from substance abuse addiction. So the numbers aren't directly all children, but our primary mentality is that you cannot help the children without addressing the entire family unit. So a lot of our programming is designed to address the entire family unit because as my mother and father found in the past, when they were helping the kids, they were sending them back into an environment that wasn't conducive to what they were actually helping them with. So on top of partnering with the Now Action Group and doing that big event down at the Cavelli Center, we also previously had partnerships with Second Harvest Food Bank and once again, Neighborhood Ministries. We partnered with them to provide a pantry. Heart Reach Ministries, I'm sorry, they did the merger. And we also have partnerships with URC to do like a fatherhood initiative event in the New Rockford Village, to where we were promoting, active fatherhood and fatherhood engagement with the kids and
family reunification.
Yeah, family reunifications and different things like that. So we have a track record of partnering with any organization whose mission aligns with what we want to accomplish, because we found that together you can get a lot more done than trying to do anything individually. So we are really adept at partnering with organizations to make our impact greater than what it would normally be on our own.
Go ahead, Samantha, and then we're going to have to wrap up and move on to our next presenter.
Thank you. Thank you. And just a direct follow-up, just for a point of clarification, your goal is to help 350 children between the Victory neighborhoods and the Briar Hill neighborhoods this grant cycle.
That's true, but it will not just be limited to the children who are residents in those two neighborhoods. Our services are all inclusive, and any children in underserved communities or the poor neighborhoods that need our help and want to participate in the activities that we'll be providing, they'll all be welcome.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. We will go ahead and move on to the Oak Hill Collaborative, and I believe we have Pat Kerrigan on the line. Pat, if you want to give us just a brief overview, and then so that way we have enough time to ask questions.
Good morning, through the chair. Thank you very much. The Oak Hill Collaborative is an organization on the south side that acts as a community space for people, not only in the neighborhood, but really throughout the city and the county, but we try to focus as much as we can on the south side. We've done a variety of things, including neighborhood development and cleaning up the neighborhoods and helping with block watch organizations. We offer space for anybody any community group that wants to use it free of charge. We let them use it, and that's worked out very well for us, because part of what we do is we do collaborate. I'm the only full-time employee. We have a budget of under $150,000 for a year, so we try to collaborate with others and help others do it with us and do it better. So some of the questions were asked. First of all, we own our own building. We invested of our own money well over $300,000 to fix up a dilapidated and abandoned structure that had no plumbing, no electricity, holes in the roof. We did that. We did receive $20,000 from the city for a facade grant back in the day, back 6 years ago, but we haven't received any other money, any other funds from CDBG or the city. Although we did just get a little something as escrow agent for the Oak Hill Neighborhood Association. Thank you, Councilman Oliver, for that. So we do a lot of things up and down the neighborhood. Our application here, we were pretty much given the idea that it was solely for what are we doing for the pandemic, on a limited basis. And so that's why we tried to focus our request on that. And a lot of those things have changed. I mean, we still deliver meals, work with Action on that. We also work with other groups to, the Senior Citizens Mobilization Center. We distribute masks, boxes of food. We provide a lot of support for that because we're not doing very much in our space. But now that what we're doing is we're developing a lot of virtual programs, and we've been doing a lot of virtual programming, makerspace, virtual makerspace, things like that. So I'm not sure that that's accurately reflected, because as we move on, we're not a large institution that can go on and do these programs whether or not we get any funding. We can try to find out the funding to do the best we can, and then we're kind of waiting to see if we can afford to do it, to hire people to do those programs. But so right now we're focusing more on things like we believe that digital education is really critical. So we work on, for example, we partner with Goodwill to teach programs, educational programs and job-related programs, mainly Google certifications, things like that. We have a lot of programs that are either we're ongoing or we're ready to start going forward with them again. So I would say we work a lot, for example, with United Returning Citizens. We were going to go into the prisons with them to do an entrepreneurial program in March, but that got canceled because of the pandemic. And there's people like that. Again, as a community center, we house United Returning Citizens. We don't charge them any money. They're there free. They use our space on a regular basis, and we help their mission. So are we directly doing that? No, but we still have to own the building, fix the building, pay for the utilities, shovel the snow, and cut the grass. But so we empower people like URC to do it, because I've found that's the best way. If they're invested in it, it's their program, they do what they want. We're not top-down control. We try to help others. We have Buckeye Review is a new tenant that they're in there using our space, which is a great opportunity for especially in the neighborhood communities. We also have a maker space downstairs with 7 3D printers that are available to the public. We have a digital audio multimedia center for you can do videos, you can do podcasts, you can do Zoom calls, you can do all those things. Again, we don't charge anybody for that. We have a 15 computer lab that was just getting off the ground because the COVID hits, and now it's limited, but we're getting more and more people in for classes there, teaching us a wide range of programming classes, digital recording classes, working with Urban Academy, Urban for Scholars. So we do a lot of more hit or miss things. It kind of depends on the funding that's available. And then once we get the funding, we get part-time instructors, talented people to either volunteer or we'll have to hire them to do it. So, we provide whatever we can. We're able to pivot, which is great. But it also, we don't necessarily have a full-fledged certification program of our own. We work with Goodwill and other people for that.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. And quickly, Rick, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but there is a young lady that's trying to enter the meeting from Inspiring Minds. I don't know if you could give her access to enter the meeting.
I'm here.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Thanks. Any questions from my colleagues? Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. So Pat, your ask for this application is just tailored to what's currently happening in the COVID pandemic?
Yes, it is. And we're trying to take that. I mean, I was told that's all that they were going to entertain. So that's how we focused. You know, this is not general programming monies or, you know, an ongoing thing. This is responsive. And if we could, you know, expand it to include things we're doing in terms of virtual programming, again, directly related to the pandemic, we would. But no, this is not an overall programming budget request.
Okay, and I don't know, Beverly, if you could speak to that piece, but right before that, so you listed, you're working with Academy for Urban Scholars, URC Action, Senior Support Citizens, Mahoney Valley Mass Makers, Goodwill, and Buckeye Review to get services out into the community. Those are, you know, your community partners for, it looks like in this project based off of your narrative and beyond this project. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And we also working a lot with the Oak Hill Neighborhood Association, which we helped start that. And we're working with them in the Needle's Eye. And again, to, especially on the digital aspects of how we can do those things with them. So, for example, up at the St. Pat's, across the street, there's a walking path that we just got money from Councilman Oliver to help maintain that. Well, we own it. The Oak Hill Collaborative owns it, the property. We donated it, and we help with the maintenance. We're the escrow agent, but we use our funds with them. We have a lot of partners like that.
Pat, I have a quick question. Who did you receive that information from that this has to be more so geared towards COVID pandemic? Where did you obtain that information?
Through the chair. I didn't receive it directly. I got it from my grant writer. Kristen Olme, who told me that that's what they were focusing on, and I don't know where she got it. One thing I would like to, we did talk about, I would love the opportunity to have some idea of where we fail if we don't get money, you know, because we've not been very successful, and I don't have any, those scoring sheets, for example, you know, someone making a determination that we don't have the capacity to do it, and I'd like to dispute that if that's the case, or whatever, you know, so those things are, when there's no transparency there, it's gotten to the point where we just kind of submit an application, don't get a favorable response, then walk away.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. I'm going forward. We're going to make sure that everybody obtains their score sheet to know where, you know, they were lacking, what needs to be improved. I mean, I 100%. Julius, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, to Pat's point, so when Beverly says they work with organizations that have weak applications or don't quite meet the criteria, are we saying everybody, or the organizations that reach out, or the organizations that you guys feel should get help? Because if Oak Hill has applied multiple times and never received funds and never understands why, how is that happening?
Through the chair, I will address that the best way I can without years of information in front of me.
And I apologize to Rufus had his hand up, so I don't know if he wants.
Okay, Rufus, did you want to take that?
Yes, I did, Beverly.
Okay, go ahead. I didn't see you.
First thing, in the 41st year, Oak Hill through the Cafe Augustine got $50,000. In the 42nd year, Oak Hill through its Cafe Augustine, there was funding put aside for them that was taken away. And also in the 42nd year, $14,000 was approved for Oak Hill for its Raspberry Pi program. So it's not quite accurate to say that they have not received any funding. For 2 years, they did receive funding.
So through the chair, that money was for Cafe Augustine, which is a separate institution. We received no money, no overhead, no operating expenses. It was totally a pass-through. So yeah, technically, I suppose we received money as the Oak Hill Collaborative, but it was for a completely separate project. It was not for any of our operations.
Well, Pat, did you kind of serve as the, so you served as, in a sense, like the fiscal agent?
Correct.
Through the chair.
Anita?
Yes, through the chair. Yeah, I am aware that that Oak Hill was the fiscal agent basically for the cafe up here, because that's in my ward, and I remember referring them kind of to Oak Hill Collaborative to be the fiscal agent, and they did get the 50,000 one year, and I think they got 50,000, and they didn't use it all. That is Cafe Augustine, and so they were no longer funded. But Oak Hill did get, I think, 15,000 I think, that for the Raspberry computers.
Yeah, and let me say that through the chair. I think Rufus was right. It was 14,000. But again, without belaboring the point, at the time, because we were getting money for Cafe Augustine the year before, they didn't do all the necessary paperwork to have it done, and so there was some delay. And I wasn't getting any benefits, so I could not afford to, out of our own funds, do the audit and everything else. So they had a considerable delay, a 6-month delay. Well, at the time, I was told that we couldn't get our 14,000 until, because we owed an audit on the 50,000 that the cafe.
That's correct.
So by the time we were okay to get that, it was after the first of the year, and our program had already been administered on, and we did it funded from a different source on a much more limited basis. And then it worked. We ended up getting some help from United Way to do that, so we kind of moved on because we just couldn't wait. We couldn't self-fund it completely ourselves.
Anita, did you have a follow-up, or we're okay?
No, I mean, like I said, I'm aware of the 50,000 that went to Oak Hill, but I am aware also that they were just a pass through for my Cafe Augustine.
Right, just like the money I received for the maintenance of through the maintenance of the park, we're acting as fiscal agent to help pay for the expenses of that. We get different donations from St. Pat's, from our own monies, from the city, and we maintain that.
So through the chair.
Go ahead, and then we're going to have to move on. And if we have questions, we're going to have to call after the meeting. Go ahead.
So 2 questions. So were you able to apply to 14,000, or that was the money that was taken away? So you actually
the money, yeah, it got to a point where we had already done the program. It was 6 months after the program started, and we weren't let know that we could do it until like January or even February. And it was a school year program of doing classes of Raspberry Pi. So we said, look, somebody else needs it, our program, we could grab it and make up something, but I didn't want to do it that way. So
that money went back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the primary question is still out there. Do we work with all applicants that don't receive funds, or is it certain applicants that receive information on how to get a higher score to be appropriated funds?
Through the chair, Councilman Oliver, this was a situation, it had nothing to do with a score because they were actually allocated the funding, and we didn't take the funding back. The funding is still in place. What had happened was, now, when you say about training, we did a lot of training. I did a lot of monitoring with the people at Cafe Augustine. So it was not the fact that Oak Hill Collaborative had applied for the funding. They got the funding, and it didn't matter who the organization they were being the fiscal agent, because they were still responsible because they received that funding. So they received the funding, and then there were compliance issues within the cafe. And so that went on. And so I don't think that's anything that we're going to be able to resolve here today, because I have a major file that, we even had that file monitored by HUD. So I have all the information. I don't have it with me here because I'm working remotely, but we do have information and full documentation for the whole, matter of things that happened during the process with Cafe Augustine. And Oak Hill Collaborative.
I'm basically asking, Beverly, do we work with all applicants that don't receive funding, or are missing something to meet the criteria to receive funding so that they are eligible in the next year?
We are depending on staffing. Now, this has been last year or maybe the year before, we had a special meeting and we have a post applicant meeting where we met with the organizations and we invited them all to come to a meeting. And I believe there were maybe 6. And out of that, only 2 organizations came, and we still, spent the time. Rufus and I spent, I believe, still the 2 hours that we had allocated to, I made up information packets and so forth, how to prepare to apply for CDBG funds. So it's something that we have considered and we have done in the past. Now, this last year, we did not do that simply because of staffing and other issues. We don't have the capacity sometimes to do all the things that we know we need to do and we want to do, because this is top on my list, that we don't let organizations fall through the cracks. That's not our purpose, and some organizations were not funded. It wasn't because they were bad. It's because we are very limited in our public service, particularly our public service category, because we have that 15% cap. We're only allowed to use 15% of our total CDBG HUD allocation on public services. And then there are some, other guidelines within that, eligibility, national objective, focusing projects, focusing activities, and so forth. So I can give you another short answer is yes, we work with all organizations. And especially I've had many reach out, some do not reach out, and we've invited, and sometimes we just don't get the turnout as we expected.
Thank you, Beverly, because we have to move on. Julius, did you get your question answered?
Yes.
Okay.
Basha, I do have, through the chair, I do have one more question.
Yes, Anita.
Yes, so Beverly, on the 14,000, you say
Yeah.
it's still sitting there. Who can draw it down?
Well, right through the chair. What I'm doing now, because this was not on my duties as compliance director, but now as director, we're going to look at all the funding that we have left on our books and so forth. There are some guidelines that HUD has that we can do. We might have to do a substantial amendment to the HUD funding year, or we may be able to do it with just a minor amendment. But if it's a funding and we change who the beneficiaries are or the type of project, we may have to go through the whole transparency, citizen participation, having a public meeting, telling us how, telling the public how we intend to reprogram those funds. So those are just some of the questions that I have to get answered myself before I go out to the public and say, well, we're going to transfer this funding for this project or this project or that project. We have some HUD regulations in our citizens participation plan that I need to clarify as CDA director before we actually reprogram and move any funds.
Quick, I'm sorry, 1 second, Anita. One moment, please. I think our general questions that we have like that, we should keep kind of towards the end. And that way, for the sake of timeliness for our presenters. Just other comment as well. I believe that the last meeting, we also asked if there is funding that was not spent down. We asked for a list of that to see what is still out there, understanding that we then have to follow, HUD regulations and guidelines, but we need to be provided with the list. And I would say actually annually to know what money has been left over. Do you have anything specific, Anita, to Oak Hill Collaborative? If not, we'll move on to OPA. No, and then after, if we have general questions, we can ask general questions.
You actually got to my point about that list. And I can hold the rest of my questions for Beverly for after we're done, if I'm still
perfect.
Here.
Okay, great, thank
you. Can I just respond to that? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Pat, and then we have to move on. Go ahead.
Yes, just the answer to that is that would be great. We could use that same program, that Raspberry Pi. I had no idea, was never told that it was still available. It's been several years. If we could use it, that would be great. That would be satisfy our request. We'd be able to do a lot of things if we had that money.
Pat, I'll be in contact with you, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to OCA, with us, we have Miss Mary Lou Reyes. If you could briefly tell us what your organization does, so that way there's enough time to ask questions. Yeah, you're on mute. If you could unmute yourself.
You hear me now?
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning to everyone. OCA was established in 1972 for the express purpose of identifying problems in the Spanish-speaking and multicultural community, and by addressing and establishing programs to address these problems. We are located on the south side of Youngstown. We are mortgage-free. Our budget is $150,000. There's only 2 staff persons. That includes myself. Our funding we request from CDBG is for salaries to provide services to our youth outreach programs. And we work in partnership with Heartreach, Eastern Gatewood. We provide GED, ESL classes. Our outreach with partnership with Outreach is our summer feeding program. We also provide translation services to various mental health agencies as the youth. We work in partnership with Mercy Health. We provide health screening, Zumba, nutritional workshops. We also work with the city schools, senior high schools. OCA provides scholarships. Those are private donors. And we also work with United Way, which provide emergency services, which is our food and clothing distribution. All of our programs are in English and Spanish format. Last year, I think we served over 450 youth. I think we're down a little bit. Now, since COVID, we have kind of changed our little program stuff. Our GED and ESL is going to be online, and we work with Eastern Gateway College. Our translation services are provided teleconference or Zoom. The food and clothing distribution, we have all state protocol in place. We're allowed 2 clients in at a time. We do the temperature monitoring, the recording, mask. If they don't have a mask, we provide one. We also are doing our health and fitness virtually, and as well as our scholarship program. Anything else?
No, thank you very much. I have a quick question. What would happen if the amount of funding that you're requesting, if the full amount is not allocated, are you still able to provide services?
Well, if we weren't funded, we would have to go back and modify the budget. We will continue providing services, and for the youth, we provide all the other services too. But we would just have to go back and try to seek other funding.
Okay, thank you. Samantha?
Sorry, thank you, through the chair. So you said last year you served 450 youth. Are those all the children located in the Hispanic, Spanish-speaking community?
From different, we serve predominantly Hispanic, but we also have other races that participate in our youth programs. We serve everybody. We're not, we're inclusive. We serve everybody. But predominantly South Side, East Side, Camel, West Side, but predominantly the South Side. But we do serve, and we serve, some come from Austintown, depends, if the parents can bring them to our programs, but predominantly the city of Youngstown, actually.
Great. And do you track the data for the families that you serve? Are you serving families that are incoming, transplanting into the community from, let's say, Puerto Rico or after Hurricane Maria? Are you tracking that information? If so, could you provide us with some of those numbers or details?
I don't have it with me, but we do have an intake process. If they come in for services, they fill out intake application, and we do keep track of numbers. I know when the hurricane, we had served 96 families. I got to add all the, I remember the 96 families, but then I don't know how many in each family. So it might be 100, 200, 300, I'm not sure. I have to get those numbers. But we do have an intake process. We do keep our numbers. We do have that information.
Thank you. And then just one more question. You listed the organization that you partner with to achieve your services. Just what specific programs do you have in-house? Because I mean, I see what Easter Gateway is doing and what Mercy Health is doing, but what's your in-house program, your main in-house program that attracts people to OCA?
Our main, well, of course, our services is one, but our programs would be, well, our youth program. We had our after-school program, but we kind of lost that to United Ways because they have the Success 6 program. So a lot of parents are not going to drive all the way to the south side and bring their children to do the after-school. We do have our GED, which is grown, and our ESL. Our emergency services and our translation services are all in-house.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, through the chair.
Yes, Anita?
Yes. So in your tracking, do you track the number of people from Youngstown per se, as opposed to from Austintown and Campbell? Do you have a breakdown?
Yes, we do. We track Youngstown, Hubbard, anybody that comes from Hubbard, Liberty, and we keep track of all the different areas of Youngstown.
Okay, so what percentage of your clientele is from Youngstown?
I say about 90%.
Okay, then do you get any funding outside of Youngstown?
No, we don't.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Miss Mary Lou. And I also wanted to let our guests know, if you already presented, because I know this meeting is very long, if you would like to leave the meeting, you're more than welcome to. I mean, if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to do that as well. We will go ahead and move on to Ohio Urban Renaissance. And I'm not, do we have, oh, I believe Kevin Scott is representing. Okay.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep. If you want to just give us a brief overview, and then we'll go ahead and ask any questions. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Ohio Urban Renaissance is a youth outreach organization. Our basis, we kind of fall into a niche market of targeting teenagers, high school youth as they transition into adulthood. We focus on post-secondary education, mentorship. We tackle a lot of different things. We try to fill the gap, so to speak, for our youth and in our community. So a major thing that we touch on is just what the needs are. So we have ICANN program, which is an after-school program currently partnered in Youngstown City Schools, which is a college preparatory program with STEM education services. Just last year alone, we got 13 kids, inactive students into colleges all over the United States. So we've actually partnered with Academy of Urban Scholars. Our facility is the old Buckeye Elks Youth Center, which we have equitable title on that. So we have ownership of that facility. Inside the facility, we've partnered with organizations. So operating inside the facility currently, we have Youngstown Community Restorative Organization, which is a reentry program from returning citizens. We're actually working with them to reach juveniles now, which is to expand on what they currently do. We work with Kingdom Keepers of Time, which is through Christ dwelling place ministry, which we provide a drum line. We recently just started working with the Housing Bright Foundation. We work with Upward Bound, which is federally funded TRIO organization. So they're doing some of our current programs with digital learning right now. Our program, I mean, we've had a lot of collaboration just among sectors and different organizations throughout the city and agencies. So we've received funding from Youngstown Foundation, Community Foundation for our programs and services, J. Ford Crandall. We've worked with, I mean, in a short time, we work with so many different organizations right now. I kind of be doing a disservice to try to list them all, but Summit Secondary Academy, we've worked with both Youngstown and Warren branches, bringing in kids. Over the past 2 years, we've serviced roughly probably about 300 kids. We offer free Fridays sports mentorship programs. We provide open use to our facility for different organizations to come in and use the facility, the space for different things. Right now, we're just currently, as far as our application for this particular thing was currently set around us being able to provide our services more fully in our facility, as far as becoming because we have a big focus on education, so becoming a educational hub, so to speak. We have Chromebooks for the kids, so we have maybe 30 Chromebooks or something like that. We just received another grant to get a few more. Like I said, we're actually doing digital learning right now through Upward Bound currently. If you guys have
No, that's no, I was going to say no, that's good, and I was going to, because Councilman Oliver had his hand up for a while. I think he has some questions for you.
But Baja, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Someone named Bobby's phone. Could they identify themselves so I can rename? They joined.
Bobby's phone. Yeah, it says that it's still connecting to audio.
Okay.
Bobby is president of Northeast Homeowners Association, which I don't know if we may or may not need the testimony today.
Yeah, I believe we reached out to the public service category applicants.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess that's, yeah, Northeast Homeowners. Okay. Go ahead, Julius, you had question.
Okay, through the chair, Kevin, commend you on what you've been doing over there at the Buckeye Elks Youth Center. I know that used to be the hub of youth activity when we were growing up, so that I really appreciate you guys making the effort to bring that back, all the collaborations you're doing. And I have basically one or two questions for you. It was stated in the last meeting that you guys were leasing your space, which was one of the disqualifying factors for you guys. So the information that I have is that you're actually under contract and purchasing the youth center.
Yes, sir.
So that is correct.
Yes, sir. That is correct. It's actually down at the Recorder downtown in City Hall. So we are up under an equitable contract. So we do have ownership and rights to the facility.
So the lodge and the youth center are separate entities.
Are totally two separate entities with separate addresses, water, electric, and I pay separate bills.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear that you are in ownership of the property. That was my only question. I commend you and thank you for for helping our youth out like that. Thank you.
Samantha.
Thank you, through the chair. So I just have two questions. First up, the organizations that are housed or are inside the building, are you listed them as they're also partners in the work that you do for the children you serve?
Yes. What we did was there are other nonprofit organizations that can help advance us towards our goals. So those are the type of organizations that we bring in. It wouldn't really do us a service or the community a service or our target demographic a service if we were to bring in organizations or agencies that aren't kindred spirits of sorts and a shared goal. So Youngstown Community Restorative Organization, which is headed by Akeem Lattimore, goes into the prisons, speak, they work with community reentry. As a community service, that's something that, of course, our resource center, we would love to be a part of and get in. But as a focus for us, we deal with kids. So we're going to take that. We're going to deal with juveniles. So let's go talk to Delic. Let's go talk to these different people and deal with these juveniles and utilize the connections and the passion that they already have in what they're doing, so we can have that collaboration, because we're not able to physically do those things ourselves.
Great. I thank you. That's what I'm getting to, is the not duplicating the services, but also working in a strong collaborative way. You also said that last year you served over 300 kids since you started, but just I want to see if we can narrow down those numbers. You said you did 13 kids from your program were accepted into university this past year. Is that
Yes.
true for each year you've been involved? And just can you give us a brief overview of how you accomplish that and how you measure it?
Well, what we have, what we use for our intake is what we call a reach file. We use a lot of acronyms because it's just kind of easier than, kind of saying everything out every time. And reach is basically just, it's recreation, education, assignment, community, and health. And basically we try to reach those kids at those levels to make sure that they're functioning in those 5 different components, and we move forward. So when a child comes into our program, we have multiple programs, and one of our flagship program was Ball is Life, and it started out with basketball. We did volleyball, we did, dodgeball, but it started out with basketball. I'm a basketball player. I'm a young player. I listen to some of the same music. I watch some of the same shows. We play video games. So we have that natural rapport and relevancy to be able to reach these kids. And when we bring them in, it starts off as an informal mentorship, so to speak. And through that, we build relationships. And through those relationships, you're able to see the need. And every kid is not ready to go to college. Every kid doesn't aspire to go to college, but there is trade school, there is the military, there are, apprenticeship programs. So there are all these different things that you can direct these kids in. And when they trust in you, and you have this influence right now, because, we're on the pulse of our youth right now. So we're not, not to discredit or, any other organization at all, but, at a certain age, a young man doesn't want to be mothered anymore. So I see Basha moving, but I don't hear Basha.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, I was talking to somebody in the office. You're fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. But so at a certain age, a young man doesn't want to be fathered anymore. Doesn't want to be mothered anymore. When a kid turns 18, we push that kid out and say, hey, you're an adult, but that you're not an adult. You have 17 years of experience being a child. So we provide this direction and meet these kids at these different levels. So through the programs, I guess to answer your question, we identify these kids. We work with their grades, we work with their resume writing, we work with their college entry, we work with their ACT scores, we work with, just whatever the gap is that they need filled. We have a program right now, which is Effort, and it's a fatherhood initiative program. We're providing Pampers, we're providing Similac to young fathers, but we open it up to families, period, because, hey, it's a pandemic going on. Everybody needs help right now. So I think that hopefully I answered your question correctly with that. I see your mouth moving as well, but I don't hear any words.
You did. Thank you. And through the chair, just one more.
Yes.
You touched on it just briefly, but if you can expand on how you plan to get through this and serve and still service children and even more through this pandemic.
In every challenge, there's an opportunity. So I believe that the pandemic for us was an opportunity to really advance our efforts and what we do, because as you know, I mean, this is the world of instant information. We're on a Zoom call right now, which is, we may be having technical difficulties, but this could be ran by our youth right now easily. My daughter could do this no problem. She's 11. You know what I mean? Because this is their world. This is their technology. It's readily accessible, it's fast, it's instant, it's right now. So what we're doing right now is we're meeting them at their medium. So the problem that our schools was faced with right now when the pandemic hit and we had to shut down schools was we weren't ready to meet our kids at their medium. Well, we've already been meeting our kids at our medium. So we already have Zoom meetings. We already hold these conversations. We already FaceTime, and we already meeting them on Fortnite and playing the game. So we already have this rapport and these relationships, meeting them on Instagram. And so our programs through the CDC, just following things, we're able to do a lot of things that we were already doing. So we're able to get in and have camps and follow, you know, yes, there's social distancing guidelines and different things that have to be followed, but we're able to still do things. And then we're able to even strengthen our relationships because we have times like this to where, you know, we're able to interact with each other and do things.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Julius, I see your hand up. I just have a quick question, comment, then we have to move on to our next speaker as well. Kevin, so you have not been awarded CBDG funding before, correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay, but you have been awarded other funding and other grants, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of what my question was going to be. If you're just aware of the, you know, of the process and how to expend, you know, government funding, because there are, you know, certain requirements and guidelines, but you know that already because you already use grants. So that's definitely a good thing. Julius?
Yeah, I just wanted to say again, I commend Kevin on his efforts, and I mean, I couldn't be prouder. I mean, you know, but to Mrs. Scott's point and to Councilwoman Turner's point, I regardless of who receives funding, because clearly there are organizations that wasn't funded wasn't recommended to be funded that clearly qualify to be funded. But regardless of who gets the funding, what I would like to see is what, you know, Mrs. Scott said, that round table of youth organizations being able to come together and help each other out. So maybe we, you know, one day when this whole pandemic is over, we can get everybody in the room and see how we can push these things even further, because I think this is truly, you know, essential in saving our lives, saving the lives of our youth. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you for your time. We will move on to smart students motivated by the arts, and we have Becky Keck.
Thank you for the opportunity through the chair. SMARTS is a 23-year-old organization. Most of you know we started at Youngstown State University in 1997. In December of 2013, due to budget cuts at YSU, they closed us, and we transitioned to the community. In June of 2017, we moved into a newly renovated first floor of the Ohio One building. We put $280,000 in repairs and renovations to that building, including a curb cutout and handicapped accessibility. We changed the corner by renovating that building and putting in our logo and our information in the windows. You might have seen that we just announced we received a $50,000 National Endowment for the Arts grant. It's our second in a year. So we have the capacity to handle large grants and grants through the federal government. It's our second one. We did work with Any Given Child Warren in the city of Warren. We've received an award from the governor in the state of Ohio in a few years ago, in 2017, as the one arts organization for that year for our work in arts education in the state of Ohio. If you looked at our application online, at www.smartsartschool.org/classes, you will see that our application asks for the exact demographics that HUD requires for us to monitor this grant. And that's how we track our students. Today, we have 1,258 students in our database through that application process. And anytime this year, 43 to 46% of the students that we've served have resided in the city of Youngstown. Last year, for our final report, we reported that we worked with 498 students. So those were the students who had applications in SMARTS in our database and that were eligible to take SMARTS classes. That number has grown 190 since 2018. So that first year, 2018, 2019, it grew 90. And in the last year, we've added 100 students into our database. These are individuals that we can give you their name, their address. And in fact, for some folks, there's a confusion if they live in the city of Youngstown or not because of the 445 zip code. We actually have a question on our application that says, do you reside in the city of Youngstown? So that we're sure that for our reporting for CDBG funds, that we are definitely reporting only students who reside in and their families who reside in the city of Youngstown. At any time, we also need to make sure that the students that we serve are at least 50% low to moderate income based on HUD standards. And at any time this year, they've ranged between 76% and 82% of only the students who reside in the city of Youngstown who are at low to moderate income. We offered 31 classes in the fall, 41 classes in the spring, and 13 classes for summer post-COVID. Of those classes, 267 Youngstown City students, residents, participated, and 184 were unduplicated. So students are taking multiple classes and are coming semester after semester, which is what you want them to do to have the strongest effect and input on students. But we served 184 unduplicated students. How are we handling COVID? The first thing that we did was we're a big employer for the city of Youngstown. And the last year we've had over 102 employees. All of those employees pay, they're not 1099 employees, they're employees for SMARTS. And all of those employees pay Youngstown city taxes. We did not furlough or lay off anyone. We honored every contract for every teacher that we have that works for us, whether we knew that we were going to get paid or not, or whether we knew if we were going to get the SBA PP or not. We made that commitment. If we're going to be an advocate for arts educators and artists and young people, then we decided to do that. We stopped our classes at the 8th week, the Thursday night of the 8th week of a 10-week session of classes. Within 2 weeks, our students were able to go online, complete their classes. We even had a virtual gallery afternoon where we had a gallery opening and students posted their work and we had exchange. We made 21 videos using a local artist who's an employee and engaged folks in an arts challenge where families could log in and do arts activities. And we helped those students who lost those 2 weeks of programming to complete the work that they started. I talked to folks who are not artists, you know, what's the big deal? Students at week 8 didn't get to finish their last 2 weeks of classes. Well, if you've ever baked a cake, if you only have 8 of the 10 sections of the recipe try to get to a cake at the end, right? So it was very frustrating and very important for our students to do that. Within several weeks within 2 weeks of leaving Smarts and starting to work remotely from home, we had all of that online and we're already piloting classes live via Zoom and taped, and also separate from this, working with our community partners. We've established some protocol. We've done 6 pilot workshops in theater, creative writing, and music. We actually gave guitar lessons online. And we've just worked with Academic Achievers, a group of high school students from Warren through Youngstown State University. And we've provided 20 hours of every arts discipline: visual art, music, dance, theater, and creative writing. In our pilot, what we've learned is that we set up studios at Smarts so it looks like Smarts, and so the teachers have support. And then we're giving the classes live from Smarts, following all the protocols set up by the health department.
Becky, if I may interject for 1 second, because I saw Councilman Oliver had his hand up. Is that okay?
Sure.
Go ahead, Julius.
Thank you, through the chair. Becky, you know, I'm very familiar with Smarts and what you guys do. Again, I commend you on your ability to be able to affect our students and our youth in Youngstown. I've heard testimony after testimony, cycle after cycle, about how your program has been able to change the lives of our students and help them to even focus better in school and in life through the arts. So my question to you is, because one of the disqualifying factors for Smarts was that you did not draw down some funds, or you still had money left in the pot. And I don't think everybody understood the fiscal cycle, you know, of what was going on, or fully understand that programming was still going on to draw down funds. So if you can kind of explain, you know, why, you know, you still had money left over, or not left over, but why you still have money.
Sure. Last year we asked for 20,000 for a staff person that directly affects our work with Youngstown City students, and we received 10, half of it. So what we did, instead of using that 10 in the first quarter report, we just divided it by 4, and we've requested $2,500 for each of the quarterly reports. So the 4th quarterly report is due on Wednesday, and that's when the last payment will be requested. So it's not that we're not using the funds, we are using them, we're just using them throughout the school year rather than packing all the funds that we receive from CDBG in the 1st quarter or the 2nd quarter.
Thank you.
We've never given money back to CDA, and we've received funding from this cycle since we were a part of YSU. Thank you.
And thank you, Becky, for clarifying that. Because I had the similar question regarding the funding. So thank you. Samantha.
Thank you, through the chair. So I just want to quickly ask, first, I want to say the data and being data driven, I strongly appreciate it, and putting down all of this information so that we can really see the impact is really just phenomenal. So thank you for collecting that data and working with those hard numbers to make an impact. The next thing is you touched on COVID, how you're working with that, and how you're still growing and thriving through this era. But can you talk to us a little bit about the partnerships that you are working with or are helping you enhance the program and services for the children of Youngstown?
Sure. The funds that we've requested are directly for our public programming. And at any time, anywhere from 46 to 50% of the students that we serve or have in our database are residents of the city of Youngstown. Our partnerships are regional, and we have a large representation and support from what we do throughout the state. But specifically in the city of Youngstown, we partner with United Way, and we're in Youngstown City Schools and after school and their Success After 6 program through United Way. We're weekly at the Boys and Girls Club. We work with Oh Wow. We have school day programming for special needs students that go to schools like ACLD and the Rich Center. Potential development, all city programs. What we requested was to support $24,900 to support 2 staff people who directly, one, collect this data and work our way through it, and then who provide services directly to students. And those portions of their salaries are, one is 32% and one is 40%. Our overall budget for SMARTS is about $582,000 plus. Our board will actually will approve our new board for this year on Thursday. And our programming budget is a little over $350,000. So our request for $24,900 is only 7% of our programming budget.
Beverly?
Yes, through the chair, I just wanted to clarify a point that Becky Keck's SMART program was not disqualified because of funding left over, because it actually wasn't disqualified. I think one of the questions that council has had us put on these sheets is how much funding is actually left. And the subrecipients actually have in their agreements till December 31st to expend the current funds, because and one of those reasons is HUD has been later and later in getting those funds to us. So a lot of programs don't even start requesting reimbursement of those funds until October or November of the fiscal year. So I just wanted to clarify that that was not a disqualifying factor. It was just something that we had to report to you, but it didn't disqualify Becky Keck.
Thank you, Beverly. And I think maybe that was not the intent, like maybe that was not used as a disqualifying factor. However, at the previous meeting, that is what was mentioned to us as one of the disqualifying factors. I did want to clarify that.
Thank
So
you.
maybe it wasn't used ultimately, but that's what was, that's what we were informed at the previous meeting.
Okay, through the chair, may I just clarify something else though, that word disqualifying is actually something that maybe we should work together to establish a different term to use, because these agencies and organizations aren't disqualified. They might not get selected for funding, but it's not necessarily that they have been disqualified from participating in the program.
Okay. Julius?
Through the chair, I think it'd be better if we work together to come up with an entirely new criteria for funding these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Through the chair, can I add a couple of things? I'd like to make sure that you
go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to make sure that you understand that we are the only community arts school within our region. There is no duplication of services. We provide free classes for these students in visual art, music, dance, theater, and creative writing. In many circumstances with our students, they don't have the opportunity to meet other students from other school districts, and SMARTS is a great melting pot for those students. There is no other organization that provides the extent of free classes overseen by licensed teachers following state standards in our region. And the reason why that's so important in this day of COVID is what the arts do is they help students to express themselves. And what we found since we've started to do our classes virtually, that there was a real big hole in the day and the lives of our students by not being able to come to SMARTS. And so now more than ever, it's really important that these students have a place where they can learn in the arts and have the opportunity to do so. The arts will be very limited in school districts. I haven't seen the plan yet for Youngstown City, but because of the pandemic and the things that happen when you sing in person, when you play an instrument in person, that classrooms will be even art and music classrooms will be very limited in schools this year.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to go ahead and move on to YNDC Mineral Springs. just for a point of clarification, I noticed the other day when we received a list of those individuals that replied that they were going to be attending the meeting. I didn't notice YDC on the list. So I reached out, and upon gaining clarification that the Mineral Springs project is actually in the wrong category. It should be under, I believe, public facilities, where the rest of our infrastructure improvements are. I did want to state for the record that YNDC did correctly fill out their application as to what category that they should be put in, and it was a mistake on our as in the city's. It was the city's fault in a sense. In the meantime, I also learned that they applied under 4 different requests for funding for 4 different programs. However, we as the CPED committee and the rest of council only received 3 of those applications. So if Ian can take the time to, I guess, briefly discuss Mineral Springs, but also discuss the revitalization portion that is the one that would correctly be under public service.
Good
Ian.
morning, and thank you. So the first application for Mineral Springs Avenue, as was stated, is for infrastructure. It's for about 900 linear feet of sidewalk replacement and about 250 linear feet of curb replacement. The reason for the request and the infrastructure replacement on the street is that we are preparing to build new houses. We will build 9 new houses in a couple phases. The houses will be both for sale and for rent. The first 2 will be built in the spring of 2021 and be rented to low-income residents. I'm happy to say they'll likely be the most energy efficient homes ever constructed in the city of Youngstown, and will have on-site solar power as well. As part of the overall project, though, as I stated in my letter that I sent after the last meeting, there's approximately 27 parcels on the street. Of course, we're not building a house back on every one, but the infrastructure on the whole street is in a distressed condition. So we are seeking some support from the city to repair the infrastructure where it's needed. So when we begin building these new homes, not only do we have new homes, but the infrastructure on the street is safe and in a quality state that's attractive to people moving to the street. Additionally, just very quickly, this is part of a broader ongoing effort in this particular neighborhood. We're also renovating a commercial building right at the end of the street that will be rented to small business. So as with all our work, it's not just about providing quality housing, which is one component, but stabilizing neighborhoods and moving forward. So that's that application. In summary, I'd be happy to answer any questions or go on to the summary of the next one.
Councilman Oliver.
Thank you, through the chair. So Ian, I don't know, we was asking to use a different word, but I don't have a different word. One of the disqualifying factors for you and YNDC's Mineral Springs project was, it was said that in the construction process, heavy equipment would be moved back and forth over the sidewalks and would kind of defeat the purpose of putting sidewalks in due to the heavy equipment. Now, me being in the process of building a house and also having seen you guys' process of building new construction, I know that heavy equipment is only used for maybe like the excavation process, and then from there it's out of the way, then you enter into the building process. So if you could kind of explain the building process and the sidewalks so everybody has a clear understanding.
Yes, good question. Thank you. So the first thing I would say is, as I said in the summary, we're not just replacing sidewalks and curbs where the homes will be built, which ultimately will be just 9 lots, but we're doing it on the whole street. as well as the adjoining small sections of Volney Road and Glenwood Avenue. So this is to clean up the whole project site and the greater environs. Of course, we will take good care in terms of our methods of ingress and egress. We will not be damaging or running over the new concrete, sidewalks, or curbing. So there'll be plenty of access points for us to build the housing as we continue to go forward. As I stated in my letter too, this is something we've done before, both in building new housing, but also now having renovated more than 140 vacant buildings in the city of Youngstown, in the course of which we have excavated and removed sidewalks and driveways. I believe most of council has seen many of the final projects, so you know what we're capable of. But we have no intention, nor would we ask for money to put in sidewalks, then go out and crush them later.
Thank you. And I also want to commend you on what you're doing, because I know one of the biggest things Youngstown need is affordable and modern housing stock. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Oh, Samantha.
Thank you. Through the chair, you say you're going to be building 2 houses in the spring of 2021. Where is that funding coming from, and how will that help you leverage the work, the additional work being done on Mineral Springs?
The funding will come from the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh. The financing will come from PNC Bank. In terms of leverage, this funding is critical. The majority of the funding will come from the Federal Home Loan Bank and PNC, but that funding is only available for the sites where we are constructing the housing. So if we're building housing on 2 lots to start, we can only improve the sidewalks on those 2 lots. Like I said, there's dozens of other parcels with distressed infrastructure. You need another source of funding to repair the infrastructure on those parcels. That is the spirit of our CDBG request, so that we can do everything the right way on the whole street. But that will also enable us to put together a stronger final application of the Federal Home Loan Bank and be able to articulate that we intend to repair the infrastructure on the whole street, and we have a committed funding source to do so. The total project cost, once we construct the 9 homes, is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million. This first phase will be nearing $1 million and will include the construction of 2 homes, the repair of the infrastructure, the cleanup of the landscape frontage along the corner of Mineral Springs Avenue and Glenwood Avenue, and the renovation of a 5,000 square foot commercial building at 1945 Glenwood. So this is a multi-million-dollar project that we're putting forth.
Samantha.
Yes, and through direct follow-up, what this is like a really robust project. How long has YNDC been working at this to get to this point where you're ready, or shovel ready, as we say?
Yes, thank you. We've been assembling the land on Mineral Springs for the better part of a decade. I think we acquired the first parcel in 2012, and that took us some time to get. We just acquired the last parcel within the past 6 months or so. So it's taken about a decade to assemble all the land. The street is empty, so it's all vacant lots and 2 vacant homes. So it's definitely a good candidate. The streets both to the north and south are still intact. So this is an important neighborhood stabilization project. We've been working on the pre-development for about a year. So we do have the preliminary architectural work done, the design, the cost estimates, and we're working right now with PNC Bank to get everything in order for financing in our Federal Home Loan Bank application, which PNC is the member bank, and they're sponsoring our application.
Thank you, Ian. If you can if we can start discussing the revitalization portion of your request, because as I mentioned, that was not presented to us previously. So you could kind of touch base on what that is, and that does belong in the public services category.
Okay, got it. Yes, our next application was for our Revitalize program, which again, I believe most of council is familiar with. This is something that we have requested funding for year over year, the past 4 or 5 years. The funding request is for boards, paint, dumpsters. We use this to board up and clean up vacant properties in the city. Over the past 5 or 6 years, we've cleaned up about 2,400 vacant properties. And as most of you know, city code enforcement refers them to us. We also send them findings from our every other year citywide vacancy survey in terms of unsecured properties. So the funding is fully used for materials. We are not seeking any funding for staff costs. We provide the labor at no cost, but we do need funding to be able to provide the lumber and the paint and the things that we use to actually board up and clean up the properties. With this application, we anticipate boarding up and cleaning up approximately 200 vacant homes, and also being able to install solar lights above them to provide some added security.
Thank you, Ian. And I just have a quick question. It's not directly relating to that particular application, but since you guys do receive, a lot of funding and apply in various categories, do you guys have some type of like checks and balances and have some kind of like audit or oversight?
Yes, good question. I believe Beverly can speak to that, but the answer is absolutely yes. So we undergo a single audit every year, which is the most rigorous form of audit because we expend more than $750,000 in federal funds on an annual basis. So we undergo additional testing by independent auditors, likely more than just about all the subrecipients. Additionally, the city regularly monitors us, as does HUD. As I said, Beverly can state that HUD has been to our office many times and monitored what we're doing. The files are readily available. So in addition, we have strong internal controls. We do have a CPA that handles the bookkeeping, and we use independent auditors. So there's 2 different independent CPA firms involved as part of our process. So yes, we have internal controls that are required per federal regulations, not just due to monies we receive from the city, but other federal sources, and we do complete a single audit on an annual basis.
Thank you. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Oh, Beverly?
Yes, through the chair, I would just like to back up what Ian has said, particularly about the monitoring piece, and that is just a key part of CDBG, everything that he mentioned. So I can really underscore the importance of the monitoring piece because it does begin at application. So thank you, Ian. And I do apologize that your one application did not make it on the budget, but it's there now. I mean, at least we've acknowledged it. So I appreciate your patience with that.
Great, thank you, Beverly. Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Ian. We will go ahead and move on to the Youngstown Lifeguard Academy. And I believe we have Kevin Tarpley. Kevin, if you're still with us, if you could, okay, if you could, yep, unmute yourself and give a brief summary. Perfect, thanks.
Sure. The Youngstown Lifeguard Academy was originally started back in February of 2019. And when I arrived home in January of 2019, I just happened to meet Chief Finley at the bank, and he asked what I was doing. And I told him I'm home to try to help and that I was planning to get a job. And then I had this project that's been sitting on my desk for 14 years called the Lifeguard Academy. And he said, Kev, you need to meet with the director of the Parks and Recreation because we've been having a heck of a time getting lifeguards since you left. Prior to being recruited out of Youngstown to work for the national organization called Youth Build USA as the National Youth Coordinator, 10 years prior to that, I was a Red Cross water safety instructor and trained lifeguards for 10 years for the city of Youngstown. And now we were at this point here where we had one pool, and this has been a systemic problem for the Parks and Recreation. Last year, I managed the Northside pool. 2 out of the 11 lifeguards were from Youngstown. 2 out of the 11 lifeguards were Black. The rest of the lifeguards came from the surrounding communities. So this I saw as one particular problem. Another thing that was recognized was that we have a number of at-risk and underserved young people who are 15 to 24 who could benefit from a job as a lifeguard. A number of people here in the city of Youngstown who have gone on to leadership roles, I trained as lifeguard. Chief Finley was one, Marlon McGahee is another, Mike Anderson is another. A lot of these young people had learned some very serious skills in terms of responsibility, addressing their particular physical and mental conditioning. So this was something that we wanted to pass on to young people here in Youngstown. In one conversation I had with a city official, he mentioned to me that YSU president said that a reason why a lot of business people say they don't want to locate in Youngstown is because of attitude and behavior. Well, Tom Geist, the president of the YMCA, also mentioned that this was a problem with many of the young people that were coming to various Ys around the state of Ohio. Was their attitude and behavior. They come to work not with the work ethic, but they come to work with a feeling and belief that the job owes them something. So what we want to do in terms of the Youngstown Lifeguard Academy is address leadership development, community service, entrepreneurship, and a number of other items in terms of development for our young people. And we plan on doing this through independent and instructor-led swim conditioning and physical conditioning, setting up a command structure similar to the fire department, police department, where there will be officers that will help take responsibility. They will go through a 10-week training. We want to have UMADOC, which was our fiscal sponsor and provide us office space to provide some prevention training over a 10-week period. The YMCA is going to offer free memberships to our young people who become members of the Academy's Leaders Club. They will go through training through that process as well. Then in February, there will be a lifeguard class. This is going to require that they commit for 144 days before the lifeguard class starts. Upon successful completion of the lifeguard class, they have an opportunity to become swim instructors. The following years, when you become a member of the Lifeguard Academy, it doesn't end once you get your lifeguard license and your swim instructor license. It's going to continue on till you graduate high school. If you leave Youngstown, they'll be able to go away if they're going to college or to a vocational training, and they keep their license current. They'll have an opportunity to earn a living where they land anywhere in the country, as like the Red Cross license, the YMCA license is recognized worldwide. We're going to do scuba diving training. And a lot of people ask, why scuba diving training? Well, we want to connect them to the Mahoney County Search, Rescue, and Recovery Team in hopes that they can build relationships with current first responders who may be EMTs, police officers, and firefighters, and encourage them once they get a chance to build a relationship, particularly with the environment that exists right now today, that these individuals might become mentors and identify that these young people would be a great EMT, police officer, or firefighter. We're partnering with Psych Ward, the Bike Riding Club, as a means of gingerly encouraging our young people to think about physical conditioning on an ongoing basis. And also in terms of community service, because what we love to see come out of that is that they become part of this club as well. And then the academy and the psych ward can offer some bike safety courses during the summer or throughout the year, depending on when the academy wishes to sponsor such. The Downtown Aquinas Club annual auction, the Liberty annual bike safety program. We're going to volunteer with the Youngstown Parks and Recreation on various services. And we're creating a boost program to support candidates and cadets who have IEPs. We know that a young person has a better opportunity of earning better pay if they complete their high school diploma. It's $10,000 to $20,000 more, depending on where you live in the country. Then we are looking to establish put a kid to work during the school breaks so that our candidates and cadets can earn some pocket money through until they get their lifeguard license. We're going to work with Community Green around winter services to clean sidewalks for seniors. They're going to do advocacy work themselves around youth programs. We intend to work with Ohio State Stone Lab on Lake Erie so we can expose them to the scientific, vocational, and then blue collar jobs that are available if they decide to go on to college and pursue such a career.
Mr. Tarpley, and I'm sorry to interject. Councilman Oliver had his hand up. If I can call on him. No, that's okay. No, you're giving us a lot of great information. But for the sake of trying to, to stick to our time slots, I'll let Julius ask his question.
Through the chair, thank you. Mr. Tarpley, first I want to say it sounds like a great program. I know a lot about it. I think that it's important that our children get that military style training. What I want to say to you is, and we've seen that it's been effective in some of our other leaders in Youngstown that have already gone through this academy some years ago. Your training program received one of the lowest scores, and I thank you for bringing us all this great information that we did not have previously. Can you explain a little bit about how this is not going to be just some program where you're training a few kids on how to swim, but the process or what it is to actually be an academy that is going to take these young men and women from lifeguards here in Youngstown to something they can do all across the country. So what's the difference between a swim program and an actual academy?
Correct. Yes, sir, Councilman. Thank you. Let me make this point because this is the mistake that many adults make when it comes to lifeguarding. First and foremost, a young person becoming a lifeguard has to be willing to risk his or herself's life rescuing an individual, be it in a pool, lake, or on the ocean. For example, the scuba diving class, we get these young people through scuba diving. They then qualify if they take welding while they're in high school. They then can go to a vocational school and become an underwater welder. And this becomes an economic development piece for the city of Youngstown as well. It's thinking outside the box. Those young people can make at the bottom $100,000 a year. A year for a underwater welder is 6 months. The other 6 months, they have to come back home and recoup. At the top end, they can make $500,000 a year. If we can convince them to come back to Youngstown, build a house here in Youngstown while they're working at the welding job, the 2.5% income tax that the city can collect, they'll be collecting off of $100,000 or $500,000 a year. Let me also talk about this for a minute because I want to make the point. If the 48 young people we train this year, just for summer employment next year, conservatively speaking, earn $10 an hour, making 10 hours a day for 6 days a week, that will allow the city, and it's 48 of them, over a 13-week period, will collect from $374,400, which is 2%, 2.5% of city taxes. The following year is $686,400. The third year, it would be $998,400 potential that the city of Youngstown can collect taxes. Community service contribution. The IRS in the state of Ohio values community service at $25.43. If the 48 young people just this year participated in 5 hours, which they will, over 32 days, which is the 8 months of our program, they would contribute back to the city of Youngstown $231,612 per year, just from what we plan as community service.
Thank you, Mr. Tarver, for that
Yeah.
information.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because we have to stick to our timeline. Julius, and then Samantha had her hand up.
Samantha got the time.
Thank you, Councilman, and through the chair. So first up, wow, you provided us with a large amount of information here. Thank you for that. And thank you for being forward thinking in your program. That it speaks volumes to what we got going on here in the community. My first question for you is securing other funding sources. You laid out a couple in your application, potential funding sources. Have any of those funding sources come through yet? And if not, are you looking at other ways? Because you have made a robust ask here and want to see kind of how you're able to leverage these funds and get this going in the event you don't receive funding here from CDBG.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm a former city council member, and I worked for Youth Build USA, and I've worked with foundations for over 20, 30 years. So I understand the process by which other organizations will support any nonprofit. If there's no local support, then the other funding sources tend not to support it. But we do have two banks that are currently looking at our particular request. And we have some other funding mechanisms that we are going to pursue. But the concern for me is that this is a Youngstown problem in terms of the ability to open up one pool, and identify people from the city that could benefit from those monies. And we continue to have to go outside of our community to make that happen. So I know it's also city council's prerogative to give less to the Lifeguard Academy. The point is, it would make a big impact to the other funders if the city throws in.
Okay, so thank you for that. But have you received any funding from Home Savings or Youngstown Foundation? They're listed as other funding sources or potential. So have you received those?
We haven't received from Home Savings yet. Home Savings is looking to fund us from two sources, their CRA monies as well as their foundation. Youngstown Foundation put a caveat. We want to wait until we see how many of your young people are hired. Now this is pre-COVID. The training stopped in March, so they couldn't finish their training. I've gotten them other jobs this summer. So we haven't met that criteria yet. We had a anonymous donor who gave us $25,000 line of credit. That was one source that we did receive.
Okay, thank you so much. And then my next two questions. First is community partners. Can you just give us a brief overview of current community partners you've identified with in achieving some of the goals?
Well, we've again, this task was given to me in January 2019. So we have established community partners with UMADOP. The YMCA is one of our main partners because we use their facilities, and they provide, as I said, free memberships to our young people. We're going to be working with Psych Ward, the Kiwanis Club of Downtown Youngstown, as well as the Liberty Kiwanis Clubs. Parks and Recreation will be another group that we'll be working with. Prior to COVID, the Chief Lee's was connecting myself with Serve. We were going to do some work there as well. East High School, we have a math teacher who has volunteered his time for this year to provide any young person that may need help with math as well. Dan Polifka, the county commissioner in Trumbull County, would like for us to provide services to Trumbull. Just got an email last week from the Liberties intervention staff person who also want to have an opportunity to take advantage of the Youngstown Lifeguard Academy.
Great, and thank you. And one more through the chair. So in looking at this and going through some information, I've seen this is happening in a lot of different cities, but it's directly under the Parks and Recs department. Have you, I know the Parks and Rec is a partner with you in developing this program, but have you looked at how this works efficiently throughout throughout the nation? More specifically, I'm going to speak to Henderson, Nevada has this exact program, but it is under Parks and Rec. So just, can you talk about how you feel this separate entity would work better than running this program through the city?
Well, I'm looking to establish a nonprofit that is independent in its operation and is able to be able to pivot when necessary so that we are meeting the needs of our young people. Parks and Recreations throughout the country operate differently than others. Some do offer their own lifeguard training program. We had, for example, the YMCA had a lifeguard academy, but it wouldn't take off. And the discussion I had with the aquatics director was, why wouldn't it take off? And she said young people weren't interested. And I said, no, that's not true. They are interested. It's how you approach young people, which can garner the interest in young people and what you offer them. So it varies. There's no one set way that this operates. What we're doing here in Youngstown is addressing the particular needs of the young people here in Youngstown. That's what makes it different.
Thank you. Samantha, do you have another question? Because then we have to move on because we're going over our time. Are we good? Okay, perfect. Thank you. The next presenter that we have is Youngstown Promise Neighborhood, and we have Trina Benson with us. If you could unmute yourself and give a brief summary, and then we'll ask questions.
Okay, good afternoon. I'll start with that. In 2015, the United Way of Youngstown, along with a HUD representative and two Vistas with other community organizations, came together with the goal of turning Taft School into a community hub to provide services, resources, and programming to residents, students, and families to uplift them out of poverty. The goal was to bring families, community organizations, and schools to improve educational outcomes, and that all children living in a promised neighborhood would grow to have access to a high quality school and a network of family and community supports that prepare them for college and or career. The guiding principles were that no child's success should be determined by their zip code. Every neighborhood should be built around and support a quality school, and there should be a cradle to career continuum of solutions. The setup of the Promise Neighborhood is there are 4 councils. Those councils are education, neighborhood and safety, health and wellness, jobs and economy. In each council, there are partners that come together and they plan events and services and look at ways to help that specific neighborhood. Some of the key partners are United Way, Youngstown City Schools, Mercy Health, the Neighborhood Association Block Watches, Akron Children's Hospital, and Community Legal Aid. In July of 2019, Taft Promise Neighborhood made the transition into becoming Youngstown Promise Neighborhoods because the goal is, once there is a concentrated effort and that there are outcomes and results that can be duplicated across different neighborhoods, that is the goal long term. So in 2019, it became YPN and a board was formed. There is 1 full staff person, that is me, along with 4 Vistas that work full time as well. in our year, we have received funding from Youngstown Foundation, Community Foundation, YSU Pay It Forward Grant, the Dollar General Literacy Grant, United Way, the Bartlow Foundation, Amy and Lulu Siddell Foundation, and the Thomas's Foundation. We are also awaiting notification from Bank of America and the Goodyear Foundation. I will speak briefly on the COVID-19 impact. A lot of our programming that we were planning with our partners was going to be in the schools of doing community engagement in the schools for families and residents, so we weren't able to do that. We've gotten creative in some of the offerings that we're having. We have done food delivery for families of Taft and Wilson families. We have a curbside at our building where families can come get fresh produce and different items of that nature. We provided what we were COVID prevention kits, which included hand sanitizer, disinfectant, along with community resource information to families that come to our building. We're partnering with Action to have a pop-up market. We did a drive-through health and wellness resource fair at Metro Assembly, where we had organizations come and provide information and resources for families. We're partnering with the park program right now, along with the public library, to offer a summer reading program at Homestead Park, Monday through Thursday, where we have a Vista go and read for a half an hour and also give the families early literacy kits. One of our programs that has been kind of put on hold is our Reading While Laundering program. This program, we provided bookshelves and early literacy kits to the Sunshine Bright Laundromat. And we were having community organizations come with resources and also providing families with free gift cards for laundering, with the goal of really promoting parents engaging in reading with their families and their children. And while the children are at the laundromat, being able to read and to build their literacy skills. That has kind of gone away because of COVID-19, but we're looking to revamp that. Our councils are continuing to meet through Zoom and still planning activities and events through Zoom and working with the Youngstown City Schools to see how we can support them once there's a definite plan for the school year.
Thank you very much. Any questions from my colleagues or from the committee?
Just a quick question. There was a project that was housed within Taft Promise, which was the City Youth Council. Is that project still moving forward within Taft Promise?
So it never was established. So when I came on, there was really no information. There was nothing that really let me know like what the process of that was. We have talked about constantly though, really wanting to engage Taft and Wilson 8th graders and also East students in becoming more engaged in their community and learning of how they can be, have a voice within their community. But right now there isn't any plans for it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much, Trina. I believe we have one left. We have Inspiring Minds. Is Stephanie? Yep, perfect. Thank you. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your patience. I apologize. We're in the middle of our summer program, so we have kids running around. Inspire Minds, established 14 years ago, expanded into the city of Youngstown in 2015. When it expanded, of course, at the time, we were under the 21st Century Grant, which had us inside of the district, inside of the schools. And at the time, we did serve up to, in our extensive time there, we served almost 500 students throughout the district. Fast forward to 2017, our last year in the district, we decided to go ahead and move forward and lease a space with YNDC at the Glenwood Business Center, 2246 Glenwood, and switch our focus to serving students that are in grade 7 through 12, because we felt they were being left out of the opportunities that we offer when it comes to exposure, college and career readiness, education, health and wellness, and our personal development. Those are our 5 focus areas. So currently we are serving 25 students. Due to the pandemic, we're only having 25 students here for summer. How we decided to adjust our program was that once we shut down with COVID-19, we ended up starting a Google Classroom the following week, and we started our program that way. So we've been virtual since then. And then last Monday, July 6th, we decided to come face-to-face with certain things in place according to CDC guidelines and health department guidelines to ensure the safety of our families, taking temperatures, masks, and all of that great stuff. Inspiring Minds Youngstown, currently again, serving grades 7 through 12, and that is our continued focus as we stand today. How we plan to move forward with the organization is continue to push our children into college and career readiness, the education, all of that great things, the exposure piece. But doing it virtually, we've done, and now we are ready to do face-to-face, but limiting the amount of students that we will have face-to-face. Currently, we are working on our students with Project Lit, which is the library system. That's one of our partners. We have OYEP from YSU, which is the Ohio Youth Entrepreneurship Program. We partner with MyCap. We partner with Mahoney Valley College Access Program to help our students, because so far all of the high school students we've had come through the program the last 2 years are all in college. And thanks to the assistance of Mahoney Valley College Access Program and Inspiring Minds, we were able to get there fast with taking care of where the majority of our students went debt-free to college. So that is our main goal, is to make sure they're debt-free and that they're going in and pursuing their degrees appropriately. What else do I want to share with you? Our budget, as you can see, 234,000 and some change is our budget, and our ask covers about 17% of the budget for our program director. As you may know, a lot of grants do not cover administrative costs and things of that nature. So that is why our ask is always to cover salary with CDBG funding, because we feel like it is quality that we need when it comes to our program director. So we need to make sure that we compensate accordingly. Anything else I want to share? Oh, let me just share with you currently, and I apologize, I'm just pushing through because I know you guys are pressed over the time limit. Currently, the Youngstown Inspiring Minds, we are working on a project that is really huge. And so we definitely need to continue to push our students. And with COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, and everything that has happened recently, we are really starting to focus with our students, not only entrepreneurship, because they are doing a software app development with Oasis Matters, one of our other partners out of Columbus, Maurice Womack, who's a product of Youngstown City Schools. We're working with him to develop apps for our students. But also outside of that, one thing we're working on a project right now with Project Lit. Last summer, they read Dear Martin. And so with Dear Martin, this year they're reading some other things. They're starting to write and develop their own Dear Martin, and they had to pick certain folks that they could talk to or talk about that are a part of the Black Lives Matter movement. And because of that great story that is being covered right now. I got a call last night from NBC Nightly News about coming to cover my kids on that project as well. So we're really starting to focus on social injustices and really starting to focus our students on how to walk into those leadership roles to make changes. And that is part of the education piece and all of that, but we really want to start focusing on creating true leaders for our community.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from my colleagues?
Through the chair, not so much a question, but more of a comment. I just want to say again, like SMARTS, Inspiring Minds is one of those programs that I've heard about in the community. I've been directly involved in, and you guys do a phenomenal job with molding our kids' minds, with helping them think outside the box and advancing them in school and in life. So I just want to commend you on that. Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, perfect. Well, I want to thank all of our guests and speakers. Thank you for taking the time to join us on this very long meeting, but I believe it was very necessary for us to kind of, get a clear understanding of what we need to do going forward to kind of streamline the process and make it, I guess, easier to follow, and even for applicants to understand and to know how they can improve their applications in the future. With that being said, I mean, all of the applicants, you guys, like I said, are welcome to leave, or you guys can stay. I would like to now call upon Councilwoman Turner. She has done extensive research regarding the CBDG funding, and there's some important key points that I would like for her to share with everyone, and then some questions or concerns that would then possibly stem from that. Samantha. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you, through the chair. I just want to say, as a council, our goal with this meeting and moving forward is to have more transparency in the process. And at our last meeting, true enough, we were not prepared to review the budget, let alone make sound quality decisions on our current CDBG budget. But our CDA department has since provided us with applications, with scoring cards that we referred to today, with the criteria for scoring, with memorandums of understanding, their recommended budget, and of course this the managing the CDBG guidebook. And as you can imagine, we are in this huge information overload, and we really have to thank you. I know this meeting has gone to 3.5 hours again, but we want to thank you for being patient with us and working with us so that we can develop this fair and equitable process. When it comes to the funds being allocated to the city, please know that we see there is some inconsistencies here, and we're working to begin to hold ourselves to the same standard that we're holding you all to. So we're requesting that our city departments produce programming plans with measurable objectives, because we won't even fund you all if you don't do that for us. So we must do it for ourselves as well. As a council, we appreciate your hard work and the dedication to the growth and development of our city, for our families and children, especially for the children. So many of your programs really affect and impact at that level, and it is greatly appreciated, and we see that hard work. But the CPED department, I believe, have heard our ask, and they are currently working to revamp this process to improve the overall experience of the recipients and other potential applicants. We've heard all too much that people have gotten to this process and they've just walked away or don't even apply because they just don't want to deal with this. But we want to make this fair and equitable for all of our community organizations. Again, I want to ask that you communicate with council, communicate with the CPED committee and the whole department with your questions and what you need, because if Beverly and Nikki and Rufus and Sharon don't know that you're having a problem, or you're just talking to each other, we can't make improvements. And even if it is to myself, Basha, Lauren, Mike, Anita, or Jimmy telling us something that you need or something you're not happy with, we want to know, and we want to know soon so that we can improve this process for you. We are in this, we keep hearing this when it's surrounded by COVID, but inside and outside of COVID, we're in this together, and we're here to support you. These funds are here directly to support the community and support your hard work and effort. So in the sentiment by Kevin Scott that he mentioned is, in every challenge, there's an opportunity, and we plan to take this opportunity to improve. I'm sorry that we've come to you like this and having so many questions and so much uncertainty, but we will not allow this to go on and continue to happen. So if I could just ask Beverly to tell us what her goals are, or Nikki to tell us what your goals are in improving this process for our sub-recipients and for other potential recipients, that would be great. Thank you.
Nikki, go ahead, please.
To the chair.
Oh, Anita, go, and then Nikki to respond. Go ahead.
Because I don't, they may have a long presentation, and we're at 3.5 hours, and I'm not prepared for another hour-long portion of this presentation. But to everyone who does apply, I have to say something that's probably not very kind, but you do have to come in with your own preparation, with your own more than just the ask. You have to come with skin in the game and have your own investors and things, because these are $3 and $4 million that we have, and it cannot fund everything. And I've noticed, not necessarily with this group, but with some in the past, that people they'll come. One individual came and asked for $1 million. That was to start up everything. And no, the city we're not in a position to fund your startup at those kinds of dollars. So you do have to come with skin in the game, come with being prepared to answer the questions, okay, that are asked of you. You can't come and ask for money and not have an answer to almost every question that we could possibly have, because you have to do your own homework and be ready to answer our questions. And I do echo that we do need more transparency, but a lot of these things are like this because in the past, not this council, but this council and other councils, we've given people a lot of passes. That's true. So in the future, it may be seem like it's a little more stringent. That's because we've gotten slapped. We've had our hands slapped as a city from time to time for not doing things the right way. So in the future, we are going to be doing things the right way. And it may seem like a lot of asks going on, but I would say this: I will not go to jail for anyone. Okay, that's just a matter. No, so be prepared. We will try to be prepared, but you have to do your part as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. And Nikki, before you respond, if you want to just kind of give like a brief overview so that way we can stick to the agenda. And as Anita mentioned, this meeting has been very extensive, and then maybe in a future meeting, we can go into specifics of how you envision, the process being changed.
Thank you, through the chair. And I didn't prepare to have specifics or a plan because this process is not complete. So until this process is complete, I can't present a full plan. There's still other phases and stages of this process that need to happen. So I do want to start by saying, as department head, and I'm 10 months into this, which is and I don't take that I'm not saying that as an excuse. I take this very seriously, and I'm 100% committed to this department and to this city. We recognized, again, early on that a lot of things had to be compacted and consolidated. We had staffing issues that, again, are no excuse. It is my responsibility as the head of this department to make sure that we do a better job in the 4 categories that I want to make sure that we are efficient in: is communication, transparency, accountability, and engaging the public in trust. Engaging the public trust and re-engaging the public trust. There is a measure of checks and balances that I appreciate this council taking into consideration before we appropriate. The communication that we've had today with the subrecipients has really opened my eyes, and I have a better appreciation than just seeing words on paper to what they do and hearing them speak out in the passion for what they do and the reach of the community. A lot of that cannot be appreciated through reading through an application. So this process really has opened my eyes in how we can do things better. With regard to the community development division, Beverly's division alone, there is over 188 years of business management and work experience in administration. There's over 101 years of HUD experience. So I have a team that is well-versed in what they do, committed to what we do, and willing to make the changes. We recognize that there are some processes that definitely need to be looked at. We cannot continue to, and I say this all the time, you can't continue to wear the same shoes that you had in junior high and wonder why they don't fit. So we're looking to take your feedback. I have lots of feedback from this meeting. I've had feedback from other council members and feedback internally from the staff of things that we just continue to do because that's the way we do it. And again, I take full responsibility as a department head to make sure that we are transparent. I have some ideas, you know, in how we can look differently, using online access better, being more transparent in our applicants, and making sure that we are announcing the applicants and giving that opportunity to review applications, and also helping them along when they're not funded. You know, what does that look like? How can we fund you? And how can we work together as the applicant pool to share the funding and not have one entity, you know, apply for everything, understanding the needs of each applicant and how we all fit in the same circle. So again, I say, you know, that we are committed to making the adjustments that need to be made. I do have a well-versed, educated staff that I'm excited to work with, and we appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten so far, and definitely taking it all in consideration, and we'll start making these changes immediately upon the end of this entire cycle.
Thank you very much, Nikki. And thank you everybody for your time. I know this was a very, very long meeting. I'll call upon my council clerk before I move on. Is there any motions that need to be made today, Jen?
So I believe the annual action plan and the 5-year plan are both for public display. They're on view and available. And if the CPED committee suggests no changes, then they could draft the legislation to put them forward for the first week of August meeting, or you can meet again about this topic.
Yes, I think we're going to meet again, but I think what we're going to do is, if I can have my other colleagues that are not on the CPED committee to email your recommendations, what changes you would like to see in the budget. So that way we can get that together and then schedule a meeting of the recommendations and changes that council would like to see made. And then that way we can just, you know, wrap that up and then get it on the agenda. And is that fine, Jen?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so that's everything with old business. Next item is to determine the next meeting. I guess I'll be determined as soon as we get recommendations from our colleagues. If you guys could get those in the next couple days. By then, I would say by no later than Friday. And that is it. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, and we are adjourned at 12:39.